Chapter 2050. It seemed that the fusion of the absolute blood world and the blood refining world had produced some miraculous changes, allowing Ma Shangxi to gain some insights. Otherwise, there was no way he could have chosen such a good opportunity. Compared to the two sisters from the Snow Clan, he was a pure blood race. The fusion of the two worlds had given him great benefits. Since that was the case, Lu Yi flicked his finger and sent 2 drops of treasure blood flying towards Ma Shangxi. Previously, when he was attacked by Chang Feng, he had used up all of his treasure blood, but now, it was much easier to condense treasure blood than before. After such a long time, Lu Yi had naturally condensed it again. Moreover, this treasure blood was not contaminated by the black fruit's aura, so Ma Shangxi could completely absorb and refine it. The promotion of a blood race was mainly based on the comprehension of their own bloodline. These 2 drops of treasure blood would undoubtedly help Ma Shangxi, allowing his holiness to become even stronger after his promotion to sunshine. The treasure blood flew towards Ma Shangxi and was quickly absorbed by him. Immediately afterwards, there was a suppressed roar, sounding extremely painful. Whether it was Xiang Yin, Chang Feng, or Ding Bei Feng, they were all in different positions, looking at Ma Shangxi with envy. Sunshine was also the direction they were working towards. Although the several blood warriors didn't openly confront each other, there was still some competition in the dark, especially after Lu Yi had broken through to Sunshine. Yu Yao and the other blood warriors were no longer of much use. At this juncture, whoever could be the first to break through to Sunshine would undoubtedly win Lu Ye's favor. It had been a long time since Lu Yi had bestowed treasure blood to them, because in terms of holiness, these blood warriors were stronger than most of the blood race's Sunshine. This time, he bestowed treasure blood to help Ma Shangxi break through more easily. After observing for a moment, Xiang Yin pulled Xian Yu and turned around to enter seclusion, her face filled with determination. Obviously, she had been stimulated. Ma Shangxi's promotion was frightening but not dangerous. 2 days later, he flew in front of Lu Yi with a face full of excitement and kowtowed, "This humble servant thanks sir for helping me." The blood race was a race that rose and fell because of their bloodline. Except for those with extraordinary talent, if a blood race member wanted to promote to sunshine, they had to possess holiness. And to obtain holiness, they had to refine Saint Blood. But there were so many blood race clansmen, and Saint Blood was limited, firmly controlled by the upper echelons. Ordinary clansmen had no chance of obtaining Saint Blood. The reason why Ma Shangxi had ventured into the Yin-Yang Great Millstone in the past was because she had no hope of obtaining the sacred blood. She wanted to use external stimulation to advance. In the end, he met Lu Yi and was subdued by him. It could be said that if it wasn't for Lu Yi, she would still be Yu Yao. She would have no hope of making a breakthrough in her lifetime. However, things were different now. Sunshine was not his final destination. He still had the potential to go further. Lu Yi had given him a strong sense of holiness that far exceeded ordinary sunshine. Lu Yi raised his hand. "Get up." "Thank you, sir." Ma Shangxi hurriedly stood up, the joy on his face unable to be concealed. "I remember you said that you came from the Blood Jade Realm?" Lu Yi asked slowly. Of course, Lu Yi had investigated Ma Shangxi's background. But back then he had casually asked and Ma Shangxi had casually answered, so no one took it to heart. There was naturally a reason why Lu Yi had brought it up at this time. Ma Shangxi nodded. "This humble one is from the Blood Jade Realm. If I plan to attack the Blood Jade Realm, are you willing to help me?" Ma Shangxi was startled. He immediately knelt on one knee again and said firmly, "This humble one will follow sir's orders. This humble one will definitely live up to sir's expectations." Recently, he had been getting along well with Ding Bei Feng. Naturally, he had learned about the various encounters of the Blood Jade Realm from Ding Bei Feng. So, he clearly knew what would happen to the Blood Jade Realm if Lu Yi said he wanted to attack it. And he knew better than anyone else how to answer to satisfy Lu Yi. Now, he was no longer a member of the Blood Jade Realm. He was Lu Ye's blood servant. His honor and disgrace were inextricably linked to Lu Yi. Lu Yi nodded with satisfaction. "Very good. Go and make preparations. Come with me on a trip in a few days." "Yes." Ma Shangxi bowed and retreated. Lu Yi looked up and saw that many cultivators had already set off from the 9 states. They had placed the pillars of heaven's fate in various places of the Blood Jade realm. It was obvious that Little 9 had already begun to devour the Blood Jade realm's foundation. In comparison, the Blood Jade realm's foundation was so strong that even the Jade Conch realm could not compare. Once the foundation of the Blood Jade realm was devoured, the 9 states would definitely grow greatly. At the same time, the fusion of the Jade Conch realm was also proceeding at the same time. In a few years, there would definitely be some pleasant changes in the 9 states. Lu Yi returned to the Heart Mountain in a flash. He found Rizhao of the Homunculus clan who had gathered together and told him his plan. Qin Xianhai was stunned. Junior brother has decided to attack the Blood Jade realm? They were not unfamiliar with the Blood Jade realm. Even if they had never been there, they had heard of it. After all, the Homunculus clan and the Blood clan had a great enmity. They had always understood all kinds of information about the Blood clan. After conquering the Blood Jade realm a few years ago, Lu Yi had asked Rizhao of the West if he would enter a Blood clan galaxy on his way back. If so, then he could completely destroy the Blood Jade realm all over again. Unfortunately, the answer he received was no, so Lu Yi gave up on this plan. However, when Rizhao of the West came to help after the battle with Zixian, Zhang Kun told Lu Yi something in private. It was related to the Blood Jade realm, which made Lu Yi quite tempted. However, at that time, he had not made up his mind. If he really wanted to attack the Blood Jade realm, it would take a lot of time and delay the fusion of the West. But now, it seemed that if he could bring the Blood Jade realm to the 9 states, first, it would increase the foundation of the 9 states, second, it would perfect the body of the Blood ancestor. Third, the Homunculus clan was most willing to attack the Blood clan. With all these reasons, even if he had to pay the price of some time and energy, it would be worth it. This was why Lu Yi had made up his mind. That's right. This is a rare opportunity. If we miss it, we won't have such good conditions in the future. Lu Yi nodded. Chen Xianhai knew what he meant because he was also present when Zhang Kun and Lu Yi talked about this. He immediately agreed. Junior brother is right. The West is in a good position now. If we want to attack the Blood Jade realm, Junior brother will have to go there soon. I'm afraid it will be too late. I'll set out tomorrow. Lu Yi had already made up his mind. Chen Xianhai nodded. All right. We'll be on standby here. Junior brother, you can summon us at any time. The Homunculus clan was incomparably enthusiastic when it came to attacking the Blood clan. If there was a race in the world that would be the happiest when the Blood clan was destroyed, it would undoubtedly be the Homunculus. After a simple discussion, Lu Yi quickly left. No one would have thought that a few words would determine the future of a realm. What awaited the Blood Jade realm was the inevitable fate of destruction. After leaving Minuscule Mountain, Lu Yi returned to the innumerable sea and brought along a large number of spiritual jades and spiritual pills. The journey was long and would take a lot of time. He couldn't just sit around doing nothing. He brought along some spiritual jades and spiritual pills so that he could cultivate at any time. The next day, Lu Yi appeared in Minuscule Mountain again. There was only one person with him, and that was Ma Shangxi. Master and servant stood silently on the giant teleportation formation. Lu Yi closed his eyes and focused. Relying on his convenience as the master of Minuscule Mountain, he activated the formation's power. In the next instant, light enveloped them. When the light dissipated, Lu Yi and Ma Shangxi had already disappeared. On the other side, in the western part of Minuscule Mountain, master and servant appeared. Beside the formation, 6 figures stood. They were the 6 Rizhao from the western part. Zhang Kun, Weng Xiong, Lu Zhen, Ran Dongxing, Ran Qiuye, and Li Wanning. Among the 3 divisions of Minuscule Mountain, the western part had the most Rizhao while the eastern part had the least. This seemed to be related to the size of each division's territory. In comparison, the western part's territory was almost twice the size of the eastern part. When Minuscule Mountain was destroyed, it was not evenly divided into 3 parts. Among the 6 Rizhao, Ran Dongxing and Ran Qiuye were brother and sister. At this level, it was rare to see a Rizhao because it was not easy to be born. As relatives, The probability of both siblings becoming Rizhao at the same time was very small. As for the 6 Rizhao, other than Li Wanning, Lu Yi had seen the other 5 before. During the battle with Zi Xian, the 5 of them went to help. Only Li Wanning stayed behind to defend. Junior brother Lu, you're finally here. We old guys have been anxiously waiting for you. Zhang Kuan welcomed him with a big smile. When Xiong also spoke, Junior brother, if you didn't come, we were prepared to go to the eastern part to invite you. Lu Yi clasped his fists and said, my apologies, my apologies. Thank you for your concern. Ran Chioye was a woman who looked very intellectual. At this moment, she said, Junior brother has come from afar. We've prepared a simple banquet. Junior brother, please come with us. Lu Yi said, we're all family. Senior sister, you don't have to be so polite. Let's get down to business first. When it's done, it won't be too late for us to celebrate. The title family undoubtedly made the Rizhao from the western part very happy. Lu Zhen immediately nodded and said, if that's the case, then let's get down to business first. As he said so, he took out a ball-like object. With a surge of his transcendence energy, an illusory pattern immediately appeared in front of everyone. It looked like a miniature picture of a starry sky. Lu Zhen raised his hand and pointed. A light spot immediately appeared on the illusory pattern. Junior brother, please take a look. This is the location of our western part now. He then pointed at another place. This is the location of the insect passage. Lu Yi looked over and immediately understood. We don't seem to be very far from the insect passage. At our current speed, if we change direction, how long will it take to reach there? Around 3 months. That's indeed not too far. Yes, that's why this is a rare opportunity. We've only confirmed that this is an opportunity after many investigations. However, without Junior brother's help, this would have been impossible. I understand. The return route from the western part would indeed not pass through any of the Blood Tribe realms. This way, it would be very difficult to recreate the scene of attacking the Blood Extinction realm because the southern part passed through the Blood Extinction galaxy. However, if the western part of the Heart Mountain passed through the Insect Passage, there would be a chance. The galaxy connected to the Insect Passage was right next to the Blood Jade Galaxy. End of chapter. Chapter 2051. The western Fangsuan Mountain, which was being guided by the core, needed Lu Ye's help to pass through the insect tunnel. No one else could do this except him. Lu Yi understood the situation and didn't hesitate. He immediately focused his mind and connected to the western Fangsuan Mountain. A few moments later, the western Mount innermost slowly slowed down and finally came to a stop. This was undoubtedly the result of Lu Yi severing the connection between the core and the western region, as well as personally leading the western region. The western Fangsuan Mountain didn't stop for long. After a while, it changed direction under Lu Ye's control and flew toward the insect tunnel. Lu Yi cultivated on his own. Without the core guiding him, he only needed to adjust the direction of the western region and occasionally check it out. He didn't need to spend too much effort. During his cultivation, Lu Yi kept using the fire gourd to nourish the talent tree and accelerate the transformation of the talent tree. However, after a few months, he had almost used up all the fire-type resources he had, but there were still no signs of the talent tree transforming. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Lu Yi received the news and arrived outside the Fangsuan Mountain. He stood on the mountain and looked into the distance. A huge insect tunnel stretched across the starry sky. Upon closer inspection, this insect tunnel was obviously unstable. He didn't know how long it had been in place. The danger emanating from it was almost comparable to the situation of the insect tunnels in the 9 states and Vientiane when Su Yiming first went to the 10,000 Elephant Sea. If one tried to cross this insect tunnel with their physical body, not even the Rizhao would be safe. However, it was still passable. Moreover, the western Fangsuan Mountain was a part of the Supreme Treasure. Naturally, there was no need to worry about it being damaged. With a little guidance, the western Fangsuan Mountain accurately rushed into the insect tunnel. Lu Yi remained on the mountain and followed it. This way, he could make timely adjustments if something unexpected happened. The journey was uneventful. The chaotic void turbulence in the insect tunnel that could severely injure Yu Yao didn't affect him or the western region at all. After passing through the insect tunnel, they arrived at another galaxy. Lu Yi held the star map given to him by Zhang Kun. He looked up at the starry sky and determined his position. Soon, he made some adjustments to ensure that the western region was heading straight for the Blood Jade Galaxy. Only then did he return. Now, all he had to do was wait. In the western region, many of the Rizhao were sharpening their swords. Even the 6 Rizhao from the eastern and southern regions were ready to teleport over at any time. After another 2 months, the western region finally arrived at the Blood Jade Galaxy. Of course, the Blood Jade realm was not the only realm in this vast galaxy. There were 5 or 6 other realms, and there were many creatures of other races living in them. However, the Blood Kindred's galaxy had one thing in common. Other than the Blood Kindred themselves, all the creatures of other races were just blood slaves that they kept in captivity. In order to facilitate their rule, the Blood Kindred did not allow any elites to appear under their rule. Therefore, in the entire Blood Jade Galaxy, although there were a few realms, the true experts were all from the blood race. Even if creatures from other races were allowed to cultivate, they would strictly control their cultivation in order to better serve the blood race. Most of these living beings controlled by the blood race lived extremely miserable lives. Moreover, no one knew when they would face a calamity. Perhaps a single celebration of the blood race would result in the slaughter of tens of millions of living beings just to obtain enough blood and food. The western Fangsuan Mountains slowly approached the Blood Jade world. There were indeed many active figures of the blood race in this part of the galaxy. There was even one time when a certain blood race of the constellation realm came to the western Fangsuan Mountain to rest. However, the western Fangsuan Mountain looked no different from the most common meteorite in the galaxy. Lu Yi also sealed off the entire western region, so this blood race of the constellation realm did not notice anything unusual and quickly left after staying for a while. After a while, the western region finally arrived at the outer space of the Blood Jade world. However, when the western region's people looked over there, they found something very unexpected. Outside the Blood Jade world, there was a strange object lying across. It was not small, and at first glance, it looked like an oval-shaped beehive. Other than a few entrances and exits, it was basically in a half-closed state. An insect nest. Zhang Kun raised his eyebrows, looking very surprised. He clearly did not expect there to be an insect nest beside the Blood Jade world. But thinking about it carefully, it did not seem to be surprising. The insect and blood races were notorious in the galaxy, and everyone wanted to beat them up. If these 2 races were not strong enough, they would have been wiped out by the other races. Perhaps because they were in the same boat, the 2 races often interacted with each other and often colluded with each other. This was the Blood Jade solar system, and an insect nest drifted here. It was normal for them to rest here. We hit the jackpot. Wang Xiong grinned. He was in high spirits. This trip was originally meant to attack the Blood Jade world. Since there was an insectoid nest here, it would not take much effort to deal with it. The lesser humans did not have a good impression of the blood race, nor did they have a good impression of the insectoids. Don't be careless. Ran Dongsheng said in a deep voice. This insect nest is not small. There must be Rizhao inside, but we don't know how many there are. If there were not many of them, the Miniman race could not care, but if there were many, it would be troublesome. However, an insect nest drifting outside would not have too much Rizhao. After all, Rizhao was not a cabbage anywhere. It was not to the extent that there would be more than 10 Rizhao inside. A nest of this size would at most have 2 or 3 Rizhao inside, or even just 1. Zhang Kun turned to Lu Yi. Junior brother, shall we proceed according to the plan? Lu Yi nodded. I'll bring the senior brothers and sisters over first. There were quite a few Rizhao in the Blood Jade world. The 6 in the south might not be enough, so they had to bring the Rizhao from the east and west to help. Moments later, the auras of 5 more Rizhao could be sensed in the western Fangsuan Mountain. Apart from Wu Qima, the other 5 from the east and south had all arrived. After a simple discussion, Lu Yi left Fangsuan Mountain with Ma Shangxi and headed straight for the Blood Jade world. According to the original plan, there was no need to probe at all. With Lu Ye's current strength and the Miniman race's foundation, it was enough to take down the Blood Jade world. However, the appearance of the insect nest was a variable, so Lu Yi thought it would be better to scout the Blood Jade world first and see what the situation was over there. Ma Shangxi played a crucial role at this time. After all, he was born in the Blood Jade world and had been wandering outside for many years. Now that he had returned as a Rizhao, it could be said that he had returned home in glory. Lu Yi followed closely behind Ma Shangxi, acting as if Ma Shangxi was the master and he was the servant. This caused Ma Shangxi to feel uneasy, and she transmitted her voice, "Milord, I've made you suffer." Lu Yi said indifferently, "If you want to pretend, then pretend. Don't be so careful. You're a Rizhao now, so show me your power." Ma Shangxi immediately straightened his back. The two figures flew past the insect nest. From afar, they could see insect cultivators guarding the nest. Their auras weren't weak, and they were all at the Yuyao realm. Suddenly, another figure flew out from the insect nest and charged toward the Blood Jade world. However, this person wasn't an insect but a vampire. Ma Shangxi's gaze met the other party's, and the vampire exclaimed in surprise, "Ma Shangxi?" He obviously recognized Ma Shangxi, and after shouting out those words, he immediately flew over to her. Ma Shangxi's heart tightened. They were too close to each other, so he couldn't explain anything to Lu Yi through voice transmission. He could only wait. In the blink of an eye, the vampire arrived in front of Ma Shangxi and sized him up. He was slightly surprised because he sensed that Ma Shangxi was already in the Rizhao realm. He then looked at Lu Yi behind Ma Shangxi. He didn't pay much attention to him because Lu Yi had already used Thousand Faces to change his appearance. He also used pseudo-prestige spirit runes to disguise himself as a Yuyao cultivator. This couldn't be helped. Lu Yi had long been targeted by the vampires. When he was still in the constellation, the vampires had already placed a bounty on him. Naturally, he had to disguise himself this time. "You've actually become a Rizhao cultivator?" The vampire was shocked as if he had seen something unbelievable. "I didn't know you were so lucky." He naturally knew Ma Shangxi's background. It wasn't easy for a vampire without a sacred bloodline to become a Rizhao cultivator. However, he, a Yuyao, didn't show any respect when facing a Rizhao cultivator like Ma Shangxi. Instead, he even mocked him. Ma Shangxi didn't seem to notice. He only squeezed out a smile and said, "I was just lucky." Yuyao chuckled. Suddenly, his face darkened. "What? Have you forgotten the proper etiquette after becoming a Rizhao cultivator? Have you forgotten what I've taught you before?" Ma Shangxi's expression changed. He quickly lowered his head and cupped his fists respectfully. "Greetings, Heavenly Mandate Saint." Among the Blood Clan, only those who possessed the blood of a saint were called holy sages. This was a noble status that had nothing to do with one's cultivation level. The reason this heavenly mandate could use Yuyao's body to reprimand Ma Shangxi's sunshine was because he was a holy sage. Seeing Ma Shangxi's reaction, the heavenly mandate nodded. "Fortunately, you haven't forgotten who you are after so many years." He rubbed his chin and pondered for a while. "Now that you're a Rizhao cultivator, you're qualified to follow me. Follow me from now on. In a few years, when I become a Rizhao cultivator, I might consider turning you into a blood servant based on your performance." In the past, Ma Shangxi would have been moved to tears by his arrogant tone. After all, becoming a blood servant of a saint was the dream of many vampires. This was also his dream back then. Because he had no hope of obtaining a sacred bloodline, he could only settle for the next best thing. But now, Ma Shangxi felt disgusted, but he could only put on a grateful gesture. "Thank you for your kindness, Saint. Ma Shangxi is willing to follow you and serve you with all my heart." Compared to the heavenly mandate's empty promise, Lu Ye's generous gift had already changed him. End of chapter. Chapter 2052. Very good. Ha! Heavenly Mandate laughed. He was in a wonderful mood. Although he was a saint and there were countless Blood Clan members who wanted to follow him, it was still very rare to have someone like Ma Shangxi as his follower. After all, there were only so many people in the entire Blood Jade realm. Heavenly Mandate was secretly glad that he acted quickly. Otherwise, If other saints saw Ma Shangxi, he would not have the chance to intervene. Let's go back to my territory. Today is a good day. Heavenly Mandate waved his hand and led Ma Shangxi and Lu Yi back to his territory. All the realms of the blood race were basically based on the territories of the Saint Venerables. Basically, every Saint Venerate with sufficient strength would have their own territory. The Heavenly Mandate realm was already at the peak of Yu Yao's power, so it was only natural that she would have her own territory. Ma Shangxi glanced at Lu Yi quietly to ask for his opinion. Lu Yi nodded subtly. He came to the Blood Jade realm mainly to find out about the insectoid hive. Heavenly Mandate came out of the hive just now, so he obviously knew some inside information. It was a good choice to follow Heavenly Mandate now. Ma Shangxi had followed Lu Yi for many years and naturally saw through his intentions. So, on the way to the territory with Heavenly Mandate, she took the initiative to ask for Lu Yi. Saint, what's the situation with the hive? The insectoid and blood clan did have some dealings, but it was rare to see an insectoid hive near the blood clan's territory. Tianyu frowned. He didn't want to say much, but considering that he had just accepted Ma Shangxi, and that Ma Shangxi was Rizhao, she was destined to be his right-hand man in the future, he patiently explained, I don't know the specifics, but I heard from my father that the insectoids are here to discuss with us, the blood clan, about how to deal with the situation when the insectoids come in the future. The coming of the general trend? Ma Shangxi was stunned. Behind her, Lu Ye's expression changed. He had seen sporadic records of the so-called general trend in the ocean tower of the Heavenly Azura clan, but he really did not know what this trend was. But now that the insectoids were here to discuss this matter with the Blood Clan, it was obviously no small matter. Heavenly Mandate said, I don't know the details, but perhaps my father knows something. You don't need to ask too much, you will know when the time comes. Ma Shangxi agreed helplessly. As a follower, since the Heavenly Mandate had said so, he could only shut his mouth. The Heavenly Mandate suddenly spoke again. The matter this time should not be small. 5 days later, many sunshine sages of our race will gather at the Tianya Pavilion to discuss this matter with the insect race. I should be qualified to attend. I will bring you in to listen. This was undoubtedly the Heavenly Mandate's attempt to win Ma Shangxi over. Ma Shangxi looked grateful and said, Thank you, my lord. The three of them soon arrived at Heavenly Mandate's territory. As Holy Sovereign Yu Yao, Heavenly Mandate's territory was quite large. The Heavenly Mandate realm placed Ma Shangxi on a spirit peak before leaving in a hurry. It seemed that they still had something to do. There were many buildings on this spirit peak. It should have been a palace of the Heavenly Mandate realm, and now it was given to Ma Shangxi. There were many blood kindred here, as well as many blood slaves. While Ma Shangxi was settling down, on the western side of the Fengsuan mountain, Zhang Kuan raised his brows. The grand momentum is descending? He turned to look at the other sunshine sages of the hominid clan. Have you heard of this before? Everyone shook their heads, obviously not having heard of such a thing. Only Lu Yi spoke up, I once saw some similar records somewhere, but they weren't very clear. I only know that when the general trend descends, it will be a calamity. As he spoke, he looked around at everyone. If I am not mistaken, the battle where the blood ancestor destroyed the Fengsuan mountain is related to the grand momentum. The scattered information recorded in the ocean tower mentioned this before. The Lu Yi sitting here was, of course, not the Heavenly Mandate realm. It was just a talent tree avatar that he had left here. This way, any information that the Heavenly Mandate realm obtained could be shared with the talent tree avatar at any time. Hearing this, the sunshine sages of the hominid clan all looked serious. The blood ancestor destroying the Fengsuan mountain was a turning point in the history of the hominid clan. It was also the hatred of the entire clan. Qin Xianhai said, if that's the case, then it's not strange that we don't know about it. The hominid clan was also a clan with a long history. With the protection of the Fengsuan mountain, even though they had split up, the hominid clan had not encountered any major disasters. They had records of many major events and changes in the universe. However, the blood ancestor destroying the Fengsuan mountain was far too distant. It could be traced back to hundreds of thousands of years ago. This was related to the grand momentum, so how could they know? In 5 days, the blood race's Sunshine and the insect race's Envoy will be discussing something in a place called the World's Edge Pavilion. Perhaps we can gather some information, Lu Yi said. And this is an opportunity. Chen Xianhai nodded. That's right. This is indeed a good opportunity. Originally, it would have taken some effort to deal with the Blood Jade Realm's Sunshine. After all, these Sunshine sages were usually scattered throughout their territories. It would be very difficult to deal with them all at once. However, if they gathered together, it would be much more convenient. There was also the insect race's Sunshine. In 5 days? Lu Yi asked. In 5 days? Chen Xianhai nodded. Okay, then I'll gather everyone at that time. With the talent tree's clone here, as long as his original body could reach a suitable location, he would be able to catch the blood race off guard. As long as he could destroy the blood race's Sunshine in the shortest time possible, the Blood Jade Realm would be under his control. In the Heavenly Mandate Palace, Ma Shangxi talked about the grudge between him and Heavenly Mandate. They were both blood race cultivators of the same generation. Ma Shangxi's talent had always been much higher than Heavenly Mandate's. Before becoming a constellation, Ma Shangxi's cultivation had always been higher than Heavenly Mandate's. Unfortunately, Heavenly Mandate had a powerful father. His father was the top 3 Saints Sunshine in the entire Blood Jade Realm. After Heavenly Mandate became a constellation, under his father's protection, he refined a drop of Saint blood and became a Saint Sovereign. Because of this, the gap between their status was completely widened. After many years of competition, Heavenly Mandate had always been hostile to Ma Shangxi. After becoming a Saint Sovereign, he naturally humiliated Ma Shangxi. A large part of the reason why Ma Shangxi left the Blood Jade Realm back then was because of this. Saint Sovereigns were supreme. In the realm, Saint Sovereign Yu Yao disliked him. Of course, Ma Shangxi did not dare to stay any longer. Moreover, with his connections, it was impossible for him to obtain Saint Blood without the help of a powerhouse. Therefore, he left the Blood Jade Realm and wandered outside for many years. He did not expect to meet Heavenly Mandate as soon as he came back. If he was not afraid of affecting Lu Ye's plan, he would have killed him with one palm. Even though he had just become a Rizhao not long ago, in the vast Blood Jade Realm, if he were to fight alone, no Rizhao would be his match. His holiness was so strong that it was not something an ordinary blood-breed holy master could compare to. He spoke unhurriedly, and Lu Yi listened quietly. After he finished, Lu Yi said, "When we get back, Heavenly Mandate, you deal with it yourself." Ma Shangxi was overjoyed. "Thank you, my lord." When he thought about how he could get back at Heavenly Mandate for so many years, he was looking forward to it. After thinking for a while, he suddenly asked, "Does my lord want to recruit more blood warriors?" Seeing Lu Yi turn his head to look at him, Ma Shangxi hurriedly explained, "I have a few good friends in this world, especially one of them. He is extremely talented, and when I left the Blood Jade world, he had already broken through to Sunshine." Lu Yi suddenly became interested. Of course, he knew how difficult it was for a blood race cultivator who hadn't refined Saint Blood to break through to the Sunshine Realm. If Ma Shangxi's friend had such aptitude, he would be one of the best in the entire starry sky. If such a person was accepted as a blood warrior, his future achievements would definitely not be low. However, Lu Yi still asked, "You left the Blood Jade Realm for so many years. Can't he be given Saint Blood?" If he wanted to recruit a blood race member as a blood warrior, the necessary condition was that the other party was not a Saint Venerable. He had no way to convert a blood race member who had refined Saint Blood into a blood warrior. Although the Xiang Yin and Xianyu sisters were considered first-generation blood race members in name, they had not refined Saint Blood, so Lu Yi could convert them. Ma Shangxi sighed, "My lord, you may not know this, but it is not just the Blood Jade Realm. In the other Blood Clan realms, there are many people like my good friend, who are talented but unable to achieve their goals. Right now, there is not much Saint Blood in our clan, and most of it is controlled by the higher-ups. Ordinary clansmen cannot obtain it at all. My good friend is most likely not a Saint Venerable, because his talent is too outstanding. The Saint Venerables of this realm may be afraid of him. If they were really afraid of him, how could they give him Saint Blood? Moreover, for the blood race, Saint Blood could not only enhance their own bloodline, but also suppress their own clansmen. If they were to deal with external enemies, it did not matter much whether they had Saint Blood or not. Without Saint Blood, they could still exert their strength. If Sir is interested, I can help you ask, Ma Shangxi said. Then ask. Lu Yi nodded. Do you want to ask just him, or all the others? Ma Shangxi looked at Lu Yi cautiously. Lu Yi snickered. Ma Shangxi was still loyal to his friends. He knew what the fate of the Blood Jade world was going to be, and he was afraid that his friends would suffer an unexpected calamity. If they could get Lu Ye's approval, they would be able to avoid the calamity. There are 9 candidates, you can decide for yourself. Lu Yi waved his hand and took out a total of 9 drops of Saint Blood. Ma Shangxi was grateful. Many thanks for Sir's mercy. This humble servant guarantees that they will be loyal to Sir in the future, but if they have any disloyalty, this humble servant will bring his head to see Sir. Lu Yi was naturally not worried that his blood warriors would have any disloyalty towards him. After refining his Saint Blood, they would be his subordinates from now on. The reason he was so generous was because Ma Shangxi had spoken, and secondly, he had come here with the intention of accepting a few more blood warriors. What he valued was not the strength of the blood warriors, but their ability to cooperate with him in some way. End of this chapter. Chapter 2053. Lu Yi had an idea that he needed to try out, and it required some blood warriors to assist him. At present, he only had 4 blood warriors under his command, and Ma Shangxi was the only one in the Sunshine Realm, so he naturally wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to recruit a few more. Atop the Spirit Peak, Lu Yi waited calmly. A day later, some guests came to visit. Surprisingly, they were Ma Shangxi's good friends in the Blood Jade world. There weren't many of them, only 6 in total, and all of them had rushed here to see him after receiving a message from Ma Shangxi. Lu Yi had indeed given Ma Shangxi 9 spots, but firstly, he didn't have many good friends in the Blood Jade world, and secondly, if he wanted to become Lu Ye's blood warrior, he needed to have some strength, so he didn't consider those below Yu Yao. Of the 6 guests, 1 was Sunshine, and the other 5 were Yu Yao. Reuniting after such a long time, the 6 guests were naturally very curious about Ma Shangxi's experiences in the outside world. They all asked her questions, but Ma Shangxi deliberately mystified them and avoided answering them. She only chatted with them while eating and drinking. After 3 rounds of wine, Ma Shangxi carefully observed his friends' expressions and saw that although their strength had improved over the years, they were still as depressed as before, so he immediately made a decision. Didn't you all want to know how I broke through to Sunshine? Ma Shangxi suddenly asked. Senior brother Ma is finally willing to talk? A beautiful female blood race woman's expression changed. She was one of the 5 Yu Yao and had reached the peak of Yu Yao's cultivation, preparing to break through to the Sunshine Realm. Unfortunately, her bloodline was lacking and she couldn't see any hope of breaking through, so Ma Shangxi's breakthrough had undoubtedly given her some inspiration. Therefore, among these people, she was the one who wanted to know the most. Although the other Yu Yao weren't as eager as her, there was naturally no harm in learning more about this kind of matter, so she immediately showed a look of interest. Even the only Sunshine blood race cultivator called God's Grace was curious. It seemed that he had been able to break through to the Sunshine Realm because of his talent. According to his understanding of Ma Shangxi, his good friend shouldn't have been able to break through the shackles of Yu Yao, but after returning from this trip, he had already broken through to the Sunshine Realm, causing him to be puzzled. There's nothing I can't tell you. Ma Shangxi smiled lightly. Even if I can't tell others, this Ma is naturally willing to tell you all. As soon as these words came out, the other blood race cultivators were moved. Come with me. Ma Shangxi drank the wine in his cup and stood up to greet them. The few members of the blood clan had no hesitation and hurriedly followed him. After a short while, Ma Shangxi activated numerous restrictions in a sealed room underground, isolating it from the outside world. When the several blood race cultivators who had followed him saw him being so cautious, their expressions couldn't help but turn cold. They could faintly sense that the secret Ma Shangxi was about to reveal was no small matter. After all, there was no need to be so mysterious if it was just to explain how he managed to level up to Sunshine. Looking at his friend's expressions, Ma Shangxi faintly smiled and slightly activated the blood river technique. Soon, the entire secret chamber was filled with blood. Ma Shangxi's voice rang out. The reason why I was able to advance to sunshine so smoothly is very simple. As his voice fell, the holiness that he had concealed using a secret technique was slowly activated. The faces of the blood clan members changed. God Grace even cried out involuntarily, "The body of a holy venerable?" He could not believe what he was feeling at this moment. Ma Shangxi's blood river was actually emitting a holy aura that only a sacred sage could possess. Furthermore, the holy aura was still increasing, and very soon, it surpassed the level that he had felt from other sacred sages. But how was this possible? Sacred blood had always been strictly controlled by the upper echelons of the blood clan. The death of every blood clan sacred sage would be recorded, and the cause would be traced back. Then, the sacred blood would be retrieved. If Ma Shangxi had obtained a drop of sacred blood by chance and refined it to become a sacred sage, then so be it. However, a drop of sacred blood could not possibly have such a strong holy aura. How much sacred blood did he refine to reach such a level? Under the suppression of this holy aura, he felt his blood and qi stagnate. Even if he attacked with all his might now, he could only barely exert strength comparable to Yu Yao. If even he was in such a state, the 5 Yu Yao beside him were even more limp. Their bodies went limp, and they hurriedly supported each other to prevent themselves from falling. However, their faces were filled with fear and envy. The fear came from the suppression of their bloodlines, while the envy came from their good friend's amazing opportunity. Do you feel it? Ma Shangxi tried to speak as softly as possible. He had no ill intentions towards his good friends, but the suppression of their bloodlines was not something he could control. They all nodded. God's Grace opened his mouth as if he wanted to ask something, but in the end, he held back. He originally wanted to know how Ma Shangxi had advanced to Rizhao and see if he could get some inspiration from Ma Shangxi's method, but now it seemed that there was no need to ask. He could not help but feel dejected. Although he and Ma Shangxi were barely strong in the Blood Jade realm back then, they did not have much status. They were indeed high and mighty in front of ordinary blood clan members, but in front of any sacred sage, they had to beg for mercy. Fortunately, he had advanced to Rizhao, and his status had improved somewhat. Ma Shangxi had gone far away, but now he had returned as a sacred sage. In comparison, he had wasted so many years in the Blood Jade realm. Do you want it? Ma Shangxi asked in a low voice. The shocked blood clan members were all stunned. God's Grace instinctively asked, "What do you want?" An incredulous thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Ma Shangxi smiled faintly, then raised her hand and pointed. 6 drops of golden blood suddenly flew in front of each of them. If you want it, hurry up and refine it. Once you refine it, you will also be sacred sages. The 6 blood clan members looked at the precious blood that had suddenly appeared in front of them. They were all like hungry wolves that had seen fat meat, and their breathing became rapid. However, no one moved, because the precious blood in front of them looked a little different from the legendary sacred blood. Although it was not the same, the sacred nature contained in it could not be faked. Most importantly, Brother Ma, where did you get so much sacred blood? God's Grace's lips were dry as he looked at Ma Shangxi. His good friend's sacred nature was so strong, and it was obvious that he had refined a lot of sacred blood. It was unbelievable that he still had extra in his hands. Ma Shangxi smiled but did not say anything. God's Grace did not ask any more questions. He just looked at the precious blood in front of him with a conflicted expression. He could feel his bloodline's extreme desire for this drop of sacred blood. That desire was enough to make him lose his rationality. Although he knew that refining the sacred blood was extremely dangerous, he still wanted to risk his life. And this desire would become more and more intense with the passage of time. This was undoubtedly an unavoidable problem for the blood clan members when faced with the temptation of the sacred blood. All the blood clan members knew that refining the sacred blood was very dangerous. If they succeeded, they would become sacred sages, high and mighty. However, if they failed, they would die, and the risk was extremely high. However, if a blood clan member really faced the sacred blood, no one would be able to remain indifferent. I don't care anymore. While he was still hesitating, on the other side, there was already a blood clan member who could not bear it anymore. He reached out and grabbed the golden precious blood in front of him, stuffed it into his mouth, and swallowed it whole. With the first, there was a second. In the blink of an eye, 5 Yu Yao had made their choice. God's grace was still struggling, but he did not leave immediately. This meant that his struggle was destined to be futile. Let's risk it, God's grace shouted. He finally grabbed the precious blood and began to refine it. His many years of desire and pursuit were placed in front of him just like that. He really could not resist this temptation. Ma Shangxi had obviously expected this situation. Only now did he stop his blood technique. He flashed to the side and waited quietly. In the next moment, miserable screams rang out one after another from the secret room. Ma Shangxi's expression did not change. He naturally knew how difficult the process of refining the precious blood was. However, compared to refining the real sacred blood, refining the precious blood had a huge advantage, and that was that there was no danger to one's life. Over the years, he had obtained precious blood from Lu Yi more than once. He had done so, the Xiang sisters had done so, and Ding Beifeng had done so as well. However, they were still alive and well. Every time they refined the precious blood, their sacred nature would become richer and their bloodlines would become purer. Time passed. After more than half a day, God's grace's breathing finally calmed down. He slowly opened his eyes, which were filled with joy. He had successfully refined the sacred blood, and now he had finally entered the ranks of the sacred sages. In his joy, he thought of the others and hurriedly turned his head to take a look. He could not help but be stunned. How could this be? His 5 good friends were actually still alive. Moreover, looking at their condition, it was obvious that they were in the process of refining and should be finished soon. His cultivation was the highest, so he finished the fastest. The blood I gave you is different from the real sacred blood. Although refining it is difficult, there is no danger to your life. Ma Shangxi had appeared beside him at some point and explained. God's grace hesitated. Brother Ma, the source of the sacred blood is. You'll know in a moment, Ma Shangxi said. God's grace suppressed his doubts and calmed down to familiarize himself with his suddenly much richer bloodline. He finally understood why it was so difficult for ordinary Yu Yao to reach sunshine. This was not a simple matter to begin with. Not to mention ordinary Yu Yao, even Yu Yao as a sacred venerate might not necessarily be able to reach sunshine. That was because it involved the comprehension of one's bloodline. Sacred venerates only had their own advantages in this process. Now that he had become a sacred venerate, his bloodline had become much richer. In the future, his cultivation would be much easier. Moreover, he could faintly feel that there was a mysterious connection between him and a certain location nearby. After carefully sensing this connection, God's grace was bewildered. Half a day later, Lu Yi was sitting in a room, gazing at the 6 figures in front of him. Ma Shangxi, who was standing beside him, bowed and said, Sir, we have brought them. Lu Yi nodded. The 6 new blood warriors, led by God's grace, were all looking at him curiously. After refining his precious blood, these blood warriors now had a natural sense of awe and intimacy towards him. Therefore, even though it was their first time meeting him, the 6 blood warriors vaguely understood what had happened. End of this chapter. Chapter 2054. It was precisely because they understood this that the 6 blood warriors were even more shocked. What Ma Shangxi gave them before was indeed not holy blood, but treasure blood. It was a mysterious essence that only blood race saint venerables could condense. If it was given to a clansman, they could transform them into their own blood warriors. At the same time, because they had refined holy blood's treasure blood, the blood warriors would possess some holiness. Of course, this degree of holiness was not strong, and the status of blood warriors was only between saint venerables and ordinary blood race cultivators. The 6 blood race cultivators were no strangers to blood warriors, especially God's grace. Not long after he had become a sunshine saint, A peak saint venerable of this world had wanted to accept him as a blood warrior and had even specifically discussed this matter with him. However, God's grace did not agree. After all, he was a sunshine saint, so how could he become someone else's blood warrior and have his life and death controlled by others? Because of this, he had offended that saint venerable. Although the other party did not do anything to him, it was inevitable that he would make things difficult for him. But he had never thought that after going around in circles, he would still become a blood warrior. But how could treasure blood have such rich holiness? And so much of it? As far as he knew, even for Saint Venerables, it was extremely difficult to condense their own treasure blood and they had to pay a great price. Moreover, the amount of treasure blood a Saint Venerable could condense in their lifetime was limited because every drop of treasure blood would nourish the Saint Venerable's holiness. So even Saint Venerables would not easily give out treasure blood, let alone transform too many blood warriors. For example, the peak Saint Venerable who had looked for him in the past only had 3 blood warriors under his command, and one of them had been chosen as a blood warrior because of his descendant. This was all common sense. But at this moment, this inherent common sense and understanding was fragmented. What shocked God's grace even more was that if a Saint Venerable could condense so much treasure blood so easily and give it out so casually, just how rich was his holiness? Everyone, the one in front of you is our master, and the treasure blood you refined was also given by master. As for his name, you should have heard of him, Ma Shangxi said slowly. We have heard of him? God's thoughts were interrupted, and he looked curious. When he looked forward again, Lu Ye's appearance suddenly changed, and even his aura changed. Soon, a familiar face appeared in their field of vision. 9 heavens, Lu Ye. God's grace couldn't help but widen his eyes. 5 Yu Yao's eyes were also filled with disbelief. They all had a preconceived notion that the holy master in front of them was a reclusive senior of their clan, but they never thought that it was actually Lu Yi, who had a bounty on his head. As far as they knew, Lu Ye from the 9 heavens was a human. The moment the words left his mouth, God's grace broke out in cold sweat. This subordinate has misspoken, please forgive me, sir. It's fine. Lu Yi smiled. You are Ma Shangxi's friend, and now that you have refined my precious blood, you are one of us from now on. Old Ma thinks highly of you, so he recommended you to me when he came to the Blood Jade realm. God's grace raised his head and looked at Ma Shangxi standing beside Lu Yi, his mood complicated for a moment. Many thanks for sir's high regard. This subordinate will follow sir's side in the future, at your beck and call. A few Yueyao also hurriedly expressed their loyalty. We pledge our lives to follow you, my lord, even if we have to go through fire and water, even if we have to die 1,000 deaths. They couldn't be disloyal. Ever since they refined the precious blood, they had already cut off their past. From now on, they were Lu Ye's people. Lu Yi spoke again. I know you have doubts in your hearts. I am indeed the 9 heavens Lu Ye you speak of, and I am also a human, but I am also a holy master of your blood race. There are some things you will slowly come to know in the future, but right now, there is something I need your help with. God's grace hurriedly said, Please tell us, sir. Lu Yi spoke slowly, and the new blood warriors trembled in fear. None of them had expected that in such a peaceful environment, there would be surging killing intent and fierce undercurrents. Only now did the blood race look at Ma Shangxi with incomparable gratitude, because if Ma Shangxi hadn't recommended them to Lu Yi, they would have died in the following conflict without even knowing how they died. After a short while, the 6 new blood warriors left. Lu Yi calmly waited for the arrival of the World Edge Pavilion's meeting. He was wondering if he should find a way to sneak in. Although the heavenly mandate had said that he, as Holy Master Yu Yao, should be qualified to attend the meeting and could bring Ma Shangxi in to listen, the heavenly mandate was only a small character in a meeting of that level. Bringing Ma Shangxi in was the limit, and it was impossible for him to bring Lu Yi in. He was still very interested in the matter of the descending general trend, and he desperately wanted to know what this so-called general trend was. However, after thinking about it, he didn't seem to have any particularly good ideas. At this moment, an unconcealed aura suddenly rushed over from afar, and Lu Yi immediately sensed it. Ma Shangxi also quickly sensed the aura and hurriedly ran over. My lord, the heavenly mandate is here. go and welcome him. He is your new master, after all. The corner of Ma Shangxi's eyes twitched. My lord, you must be joking. After a short while, Ma Shangxi and Lu Yi stood outside the palace, looking at the heavenly mandate descending from the sky, and bowed. Welcome, holy master. Lu Yi also bowed slightly, his gaze passing Ma Shangxi's figure and looking at the heavenly mandate. Suddenly, he felt a little strange, because the heavenly mandate's expression was a little vexed and angry, and he didn't know what had happened. After looking deeply at Ma Shangxi, the heavenly mandate said, "Come with me." Ma Shangxi didn't understand, but he still stepped forward and followed. Lu Yi also followed closely behind like a servant, only glancing at the heavenly mandate and not paying him any more attention. In the realm of the blood race, all races other than the blood race were inferior races, so even if Lu Yi was disguised as Yu Yao, the heavenly mandate didn't care at all. Along the way, Ma Shangxi asked halfway, "Holy Master, where are we going?" The heavenly mandate was silent, and it was obvious that he wasn't in a good mood. After a long while, he said, "Ma Shangxi, your fortune is here." "What do you mean, Holy Master?" The heavenly mandate turned to look at him. "You'll know when the time comes, no need to ask." He was obviously not in the mood to say anything. Ma Shangxi had no choice but to follow in silence. Half a day later, the three of them arrived in front of a huge palace. There was a vigorous aura inside the palace, and it was obviously a sunshine, and not an ordinary one at that. When they arrived, Ma Shangxi finally reacted, and secretly transmitted a message to Lu Yi. "Lord, this should be Lingza's territory. Lingza is the heavenly mandate's father, and he's also the third strongest cultivator in the entire Blood Jade realm, and he's at the late stage of the Sunshine realm." Previously, Ma Shangxi had told him that the heavenly mandate had a good father. Hearing Ma Shangxi's words now, Lu Yi immediately understood that this should be Lingza. But why did the heavenly mandate bring Ma Shangxi here? And he said those words on the way here. Lu Yi suddenly had a bad feeling. In a flash, the heavenly mandate landed in front of the palace and led Ma Shangxi inside. The main hall was spacious and empty, except for a figure sitting at the very top. When they reached the center of the hall, the heavenly mandate cupped his fists and said, "Lord Father, I've brought Ma Shangxi." Behind him, Ma Shangxi stepped forward and bowed. "Ma Shangxi greets Lord Lingza." Lu Yi also lowered his head. At the top of the hall, Lingza's sharp gaze landed on Ma Shangxi. His gaze was filled with a sense of scrutiny, but he let out a hearty laugh. Good. Our world has finally produced another sunshine. This is truly worthy of celebration. Ma Shangxi, right? This sovereign has heard of you. Thank you, Lord. Lord Lingza looked Ma Shangxi up and down for a while, and was obviously very satisfied. "I heard that you were friends with the heavenly mandate when you were young, and you're also a citizen of my territory?" Ma Shangxi nodded. He was indeed born in Lingza's territory, but a low-level blood breed like him was different from the noble heavenly mandate. He didn't even know who his parents were. Blood breeds were born from blood fetuses, and low-level blood breeds were usually born from a large number of blood fetuses. "That's right. It's my fault for neglecting you in the past." Ma Shangxi said politely, "You're too serious, Lord." Lingza continued, "In order to make up for my mistake, I've decided to take you as a blood servant. What do you think?" Ma Shangxi was stunned. However, he finally understood why the heavenly mandate looked so unhappy when he came to find him. He also understood what the heavenly mandate meant when he said, "good fortune." So that was it. The heavenly mandate was naturally unhappy that his follower was chosen by his father to be a blood servant. However, everything he had was given to him by Lingza, and he couldn't resist Lingza's words. From the heavenly mandate's point of view, he could understand Lingza's earnest advice. Ma Shangxi was not God's grace. God's grace was proud and arrogant. Back then he had rejected the recruitment of a top lord to be a blood servant. In recent years, other lords had not tried this. Wouldn't it be embarrassing to be rejected again? However, Ma Shangxi was different. Although he had also become a sunshine lord, he didn't seem to have any backbone. Even a lord like the heavenly mandate was willing to follow him, let alone a sunshine lord like Lingza. In Lingza's opinion, as long as he expressed this wish, Ma Shangxi would definitely agree. Moreover, Ma Shangxi had just returned to the Blood Jade world. The news of him becoming a Sunshine Lord hadn't spread yet. Once it did, the heavenly mandate alone wouldn't be able to keep Ma Shangxi. It was with all these considerations that Lingzi personally came forward to prevent Ma Shangxi from being recruited by other Sunshine Lords. It was a good thing for any saint to have another Sunshine Realm cultivator under their command. What was a drop of blood servant compared to this? In the main hall, many thoughts flashed through Ma Shangxi's mind. He quickly understood that he couldn't refuse Lingzi's proposal. Although he was asking him what he thought, if he really refused, he would definitely anger the other party, which would be detrimental to his next plan. In that case, he could only agree. However, he was already Lu Ye's blood servant. It was impossible for him to refine someone else's blood servant. He sighed in his heart. This guy Lingzi was really rushing to his death. Others didn't know what kind of amazing methods Lu Yi had, but as the first blood servant, how could Ma Shangxi not know? Therefore, there was no need to discuss anything with Lu Yi. Ma Shangxi knew what he was planning at the moment. He immediately put on a grateful posture and said, Ma Shangxi will remember Holy Sir's great kindness. I am willing to be a blood servant. Chapter 2055. Good, good, good. Lingzi laughed heartily. Although he had expected this, he couldn't help but look at Ma Shangxi with disdain when he saw how spineless he was. He raised his hand, and the bloody light on his palm surged fiercely. It slowly condensed, and after a while, a drop of precious blood that was as red as a ruby was born. A trace of exhaustion and weakness appeared on Lingzi's face. This was the first time Lu Yi had seen another blood race saint venerable condense his own precious blood. Compared to himself, this Lingzi was far inferior. Ma Shangxi's eyes were like a leech as he greedily bit onto the drop of precious blood. This was the reaction of an ordinary blood race member. Lingzi smiled slightly. Take it and refine it here. This senior will stand guard for you. Although Ma Shangxi had already agreed to become his blood warrior and there wouldn't be any accidents or dangers during the refining process, this kind of thing naturally had to be done right under his nose. Before Ma Shangxi refined the blood, Lingzi couldn't possibly let him go. Yes. Ma Shangxi stepped forward and respectfully took the ruby-like precious blood from Lingzi's hand. He then retreated and sat down cross-legged, swallowing the precious blood in one gulp. The next moment, the blood aura around him surged and spread in all directions. In a short period of time, the entire hall was covered in a bloody light and intense energy fluctuations fluctuated from it. Lingzi, who was sitting upright, suddenly frowned. He vaguely felt that something wasn't right. As a newly promoted Rizhao, Ma Shangxi's blood aura seemed to be a bit too rich. This undoubtedly showed that his foundation was very solid. But the key point was that the commotion caused by Ma Shangxi refining the precious blood was a bit big. Normally speaking, refining precious blood shouldn't cause such a big commotion. He had also accepted a blood warrior before, but that blood warrior didn't cause such a commotion when refining his precious blood. Could it be because Ma Shangxi was already Rizhao? After all, he hadn't accepted Rizhao as a blood warrior before. He really didn't know if this was normal or not. Just as he was about to continue observing, Ma Shangxi suddenly opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "Saint Venerable." "What's wrong?" Lingzi replied. "My lord, please die." Almost at the same time as Ma Shangxi's voice fell, the already vast blood qi suddenly became even denser. At the same time, the sonorous sound of a blade rang out. Before Lingzi could react to what had happened, he suddenly felt an extremely terrifying divine nature erupting from the surrounding blood qi. Even the person with the purest bloodline in this world couldn't compare to the intensity of the holy aura. This sudden suppression caused Lingzi to involuntarily groan as his expression changed drastically. A figure had already arrived in front of him. Lingzi could only vaguely see a flash of a saber light as he felt a sharp pain in his body. The blood crystal in his body had shattered. Even though he was in the late Sunshine Realm, his cultivation level dropped drastically with the shattering of the blood crystal. Then, he felt a large hand pressing down on his forehead. Compared to the strong holy aura he had felt before, An even more terrifying holy aura enveloped his mind. It was a level that he did not even dare to imagine. When faced with this second type of divine nature, he felt as if he had fallen into a vast and boundless starry sky, without any boundaries and without anyone to rely on. There was a short exclamation from Tian Yu's side. Ma Shangxi had already pounced in front of him and grabbed his head. Tian Yu did not even have time to react to this sudden change of events, and he was even more confused as to why Ma Shangxi would suddenly attack him. He wanted to ask more questions, but Ma Shangxi had already exerted force in her hand and crushed his head. There was a difference in their strength, and Tian Yu was suppressed by the holy aura. He could not resist at all in front of Ma Shangxi. On the other side, Lu Yi had already reached out and pressed his hand on Ling Zai's forehead, his divine sense surging. One spiritual connection. Ever since Ling Zai summoned Ma Shangxi here and wanted to take him as a blood servant, Ling Zai and his son were destined to meet a terrible end. It was impossible for Ma Shangxi to refine Ling Zai's precious blood. He couldn't refine it either. Hence, if things continued to develop, Ling Zai would soon discover that something was amiss. He would then realize that Ma Shangxi had become a holy venerable. Since that was the case, they could only kill. On this point, Lu Yi and his servant had a tacit understanding in their hearts. However, killing Ling Zai was not the purpose of Lu Ye's trip. He wanted to find out more. It just so happened that he was thinking of a way to sneak into the World Edge Pavilion. Borrowing Ling Zai's identity was undoubtedly a good idea. He could use the thousand-faced spiritual inscriptions to disguise himself as Ling Zai, and he could even activate the power to imitate Ling Zai's aura. However, Ling Zai's memories required one spiritual connection to pry into. If possible, Li did not want to do such a thing. Prying into other people's memories was never a good experience, especially for someone like Ling Zai who was in the late sunshine stage. His life's memories were incomparably complex. This level of prying would have a great impact on Lu Yi. After killing so many blood breeds, he naturally knew where the blood crystals of the blood breeds were. Taking advantage of the fact that Ling Zai was suppressed by Ma Shangxi's holy aura, he broke his blood crystal with one slash. This would ensure that Ling Zai would not die immediately, but his cultivation would rapidly regress, making it more convenient for him to use his powers. At this moment, his holy aura had also erupted, and Ling Zai was completely a fish on the chopping board. Activating one spiritual connection, Lu Yi did not manage to pry into any of Ling Zai's memories. Instead, he felt some obstruction. He immediately reacted. The level of sunshine was already related to the cultivation of gods. If he wanted to pry into Sunshine's memories through a divine inscription, it would not be as easy as before. Even though Ling Zai was already severely injured and his cultivation had regressed, this was only the feedback from his physical body. His divine spirit was not affected much. What was obstructing him now was undoubtedly Ling Zai's divine spirit barrier. Realizing this, Lu Yi immediately used his soul power to activate the divine inscription of sharpness, turning it into a series of attacks that blasted into the unseen world. After more than 10 attacks, he finally broke through Ling Zai's divine spirit barrier. During this process, Ling Zai's face was contorted in pain. Without the obstruction of the divine spirit barrier, a large amount of complicated information flowed into Lu Ye's mind, causing his expression to become difficult. It was as if his entire brain was stuffed with many useless things, causing his consciousness to feel heavy. He activated his soul power again and poured it into the rainbow god lotus. Rainbow light bloomed, and the heavy feeling suddenly disappeared, becoming much more relaxed. Originally, Ling Zai had already fallen into a coma after the shattering of the blood crystal. However, Lu Ye's actions finally woke him up. He opened his eyes in a daze and saw Lu Ye's face. Sensing his own condition, Ling Zai's heart sank to the bottom. The shattering of a spirit crystal was an injury that was difficult to recover from for any blood clan member. It could be said that with the shattering of a spirit crystal, half of the cultivation that one had painstakingly cultivated for a lifetime would dissipate. Even if one did not die, the only thing left would be the accumulation of the physical body. Furthermore, Lu Ye's actions now made Ling Zai's hair stand on end. Soul search? His expression was ferocious as he gritted his teeth. Using his last bit of clarity, he gathered his soul power and activated it. In an instant, his divine spirit left his body. A ray of bloody light shot straight for Lu Ye's head. Lu Ye did not expect Ling Zai to be so resolute. To the current him, it was easy to kill a blood clan member like Sunshine. However, he would not be able to withstand Ling Zai's desperation. After his divine spirit left his body, Ling Zai's physical body became an empty shell. He used a bit of spiritual perception but could no longer obtain any information. In the next instant, Lu Ye felt his divine spirit barrier tremble violently, as expected of a late-stage Sunshine Clan member. Furthermore, his divine spirit left his body to launch an attack. It was indeed ferocious. Lu Ye's divine spirit barrier was not something an ordinary Sunshine Clan member could compare to. All these years, under the nourishment of the Rainbow God Lotus, his soul power was constantly growing. Even his divine spirit barrier was extremely resilient. Even so, it was impossible to completely block Ling Zai's decisive attack. If that was the case, Lu Ye simply let go of his divine spirit barrier and allowed Ling Zai's spirit body to enter. His mind settled. In the next instant, Lu Ye's spirit body appeared in his deity ocean. He immediately saw Ling Zai, who had barged into his deity ocean. This fellow was now just a ray of bloody light in the shape of a human. He was holding something in his hand. It looked like a bottle, but it was also the color of blood. Lu Ye sized it up seriously and immediately determined that the bottle was not a soul treasure. Since it was not a soul treasure, it must be Ling Zai's soul-subduing secret technique. He did not know what kind of power this thing could unleash. "Who are you?" Ling Zai roared. He had suffered such a huge loss this time. Even if he was lucky enough to survive, he would not be able to regain his cultivation. He did not understand who he had offended. Why would he be ambushed in his own territory? There was another thing that made him even more puzzled. That was the terrifying divine nature that Lu Ye had activated. It was at a level that he could not imagine. It was a height that should not exist in this world. If not for the terrifying suppression of the divine nature, he would not have been unable to retaliate. Lu Ye had no intention of paying attention to him. Although the change just now was brief and there was Ma Shangxi's blood technique as a cover, it was better to be safe than sorry. It was better to end the battle quickly. With a thought, he also activated his soul-subduing secret technique. In the next moment, under Ling Zai's dumbfounded gaze, a warship appeared out of thin air beneath Lu Ye's feet. It quickly solidified. On the warship, there were a few more busy figures. The formation buzzed. The warship cut through the waves and charged toward Ling Zai. Ling Zai was completely dumbfounded. The soul-subduing secret technique that he cultivated was mysterious enough. He never thought that there would be an existence in this world that was even more mysterious than his. And this was Lu Ye's deity ocean. It was his home ground. There was naturally no suspense about the outcome of such a contest. After blocking a few waves of Lu Ye's attacks at the beginning, Ling Zai no longer had the strength to retaliate. He was forcibly smashed into pieces by Lu Ye's specter ship. The sky was filled with bloody light, but it did not fall into the deity ocean. Instead, it seemed to be attracted by something and gathered in the direction of the Rainbow God Lotus. Lu Ye observed with rapt attention. He saw that the bloody light was quickly swallowed up by the Rainbow God Lotus. In the next moment, many scattered and unruly memories surfaced in Lu Ye's mind. These memories all belonged to Ling Zai. Broken Bridge Residual Snow's new book, I Subdue Immortals with Strength, has been released. Requesting support. Broken Bridge is an old author and an old friend of mine. His character, quality, and quality are all guaranteed. End of chapter. Chapter 2056. Inside the main hall, Ma Shangxi was still using his blood technique to isolate himself from the outside world to prevent the blood clan members from noticing anything. Although there were blood clan members on guard outside and they had also noticed the abnormality in the main hall, no one dared to enter without Ling Zai's summons. Lu Ye sat cross-legged in the thick blood. After half a day, he slowly opened his eyes, and there was a hint of fatigue in his gaze. His plan to pry into Ling Zhe's memories with the help of his spiritual connection had failed, but Ling Zhe's act of entering Lu Ye's spirit sea with his spirit had given him another opportunity. Ling Zhe's spirit had been shattered, and the rainbow god lotus had absorbed the fragments, allowing Lu Yi to obtain some of Ling Zhe's memories. It was incomplete and fragmented, but it should be enough. Not only that, after devouring the fragments of Ling Zhe's spirit, Lu Yi discovered that the rainbow god lotus nourishment of his spirit had become stronger. He could feel that there was a large amount of spirit power within the rainbow god lotus. Under the mysterious effects of the rainbow god lotus, it was turning into nourishment for his spirit. After all, Ling Zhe was in the late-stage sunshine realm, and his spirit was not weak. With this nourishment, Lu Yi could naturally benefit greatly. This was a pleasant surprise. "Get out of the way!" An aggressive shout came from outside the hall. "Your Highness, the Lord has ordered that no one is allowed to enter without being summoned." The guards outside the hall were very loyal to their duties. "I said, get out of the way if you don't want to die." The voice from before was even colder. Then, there were a few bangs, followed by 2 miserable cries. The sealed doors of the main hall were kicked open. The blood that filled the main hall instantly receded like the tide and entered Ma Shangxi's body. A slender and vigorous figure strode in from the outside. He quickly walked into the hall. When he looked up, he saw a familiar figure sitting upright at the top of the hall. He was like a god above the 9 heavens, looking down on all living beings. The newcomer was not afraid at all. Instead, he asked, "Father, did something happen here?" On the Lord's throne, Lu Yi had already transformed into Ling Zhe's appearance in time and imitated his aura. He looked down at the Blood Clan member who had suddenly barged in, and some fragmented memories surfaced in his mind. Yu Meng. As one of the oldest Saint Lords in the Blood Jade realm, Ling Zhe had more than just Tianyu. He had thousands of children, but most of them were useless. Only Tianyu and Yu Meng were valued by him. The heavenly mandate had already obtained the divine blood and achieved the body of a holy lord. In the past few years, Ling Zhe had been trying to find a place for Yu Meng to obtain sacred blood. However, the time had not come yet, so he had to wait. From this, it could be seen that Yu Meng's talent was also extremely extraordinary. Otherwise, she would not have been valued so highly by Ling Zhe. Lu Yi originally thought that Ling Zhe and Yu Meng had a very ordinary father-daughter relationship, but as more memories surfaced, his expression gradually became a little strange, and he even faintly felt disgusted. Although vampires didn't have as strong a sense of ethics as humans, Ling Zhe's actions still exceeded Lu Ye's understanding. Yu Meng was not the only one. There were more female descendants. Ling Zhe seemed to have the intention of purifying his bloodline so that more talented individuals could be born among his descendants. That was why he used such a method to reproduce. Nothing. Lu Yi did not continue to search for more of Ling Zhe's memories in this regard, and slowly opened his mouth to say this. Yu Meng nodded. "That's good. I thought something had happened here." Ma Shangxi activated the blood art to isolate the inside from the outside. Indeed, people outside could not detect the situation inside, but the blood art itself was active. Yu Meng must have sensed this, so she came to investigate. As she said this, she actually took a few steps in front of Lu Yi. She tilted her body and sat on Lu Ye's lap, her plump body close to Lu Ye's body. She said coquettishly, "Daddy, you haven't come to see me in a long time." Lu Yi did not expect her to do this at all. It could be seen that Ling Zhe usually got along with her like this. No wonder he dared to be so presumptuous before. His body stiffened slightly, but he quickly calmed down and said slowly, "There are some things that need to be taken care of recently." Yu Meng understood. She also understood that the insect race had come recently. As the 3rd strongest person in this realm, Ling Zhe must be busy with something important. Turning her head to look, she asked again, "Where's the heavenly mandate? Didn't you say that he's coming too?" She only saw Ma Shangxi, but did not see the heavenly mandate at all. She could not help but feel a little strange. Lu Yi said casually, "I asked him to take care of something." Yu Meng did not suspect anything. She leaned over and kissed Lu Ye's face. Jumping out of Lu Ye's arms, she said, "Daddy, you go ahead. I'll leave first." When she turned around to leave, Lu Yi grabbed her wrist. Yu Meng turned back and looked at Lu Yi in confusion. "Daddy, is there anything else?" Lu Yi just stared at her deeply, his eyes as deep as the abyss. Yu Meng's body began to tremble slightly. Her initial calmness was seen through. She could no longer hold on, and her face gradually turned pale. Lu Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. "Don't I look like him? Where are the flaws?" He was sure that he did not miss anything. Even the tone of his speech was imitating Lingze as much as possible. But Yu Meng's reaction just now undoubtedly showed that she had seen something. Because the moment this female blood breed kissed him, she hesitated a little, but that hesitation was quickly replaced by determination. It was obvious that she had sensed something, but she could only pretend not to know. "Daddy, what are you talking about?" Yu Meng tried to slow down her voice, but the twitching of her face betrayed her inner nervousness. Ma Shangxi did not realize it until now. She activated the blood spell, and the hall was filled with blood again. Lu Yi looked at Yu Meng quietly. After thinking for a while, he raised his hand and a drop of blood seeped out of his fingertip. He sent it to Yu Meng's mouth. "Refine it." He had previously given Ma Shangxi 9 quotas to transform into blood warriors, but Ma Shangxi had only brought 6 people. Lu Yeben didn't insist, but since Yu Meng had delivered herself to him, there was no harm in transforming her. Her aptitude was not bad. The most important thing was that this female blood breed was definitely the one who knew Lingze the best. Perhaps he could make up for some shortcomings in his disguise through her. In this way, there would be no flaws in the upcoming meeting at the World Edge Pavilion. Otherwise, if even Yu Meng could tell something was wrong, he might be exposed when he faced the Sunshine Saint Venerables. Yu Meng was terrified, but when she saw the blood and felt the holiness in it, she could not help but exclaim, "Holy blood!" However, the holy blood in front of her was a little different from what she knew. Refine it or else. Before Lu Yi could finish, Yu Meng grabbed his finger and stuffed it into her mouth, sucking hard. He had underestimated the strong attraction of holy blood to blood breeds. This was especially so for an ambitious and talented blood breed like Yu Meng. It would be fine if there was no chance, but if there was, she would definitely not miss it. A soft and tender feeling came from his fingertip. Lu Yi quickly pulled it out and wiped it on Yu Meng's body with a look of disdain. Yu Meng's expression started to become painful and difficult. She sat cross-legged in front of Lu Yi and gradually let out suppressed screams. The blood breeds on guard outside the door heard the screams and looked at each other. They were indifferent. To them, such things were too common. Lingze's practice of reproducing was not a secret in the blood jade realm. More than one blood breed did it. Half a day later, Yu Meng crawled in front of Lu Yi with sweat all over her body. She could feel that she had an extremely mysterious and close connection with Lu Yi. At this time, she knew that what she had refined was not holy blood at all, but precious blood. Now, she had become Lu Ye's blood servant. She was extremely shocked. Logically speaking, a drop of precious blood should not have given her such a powerful divine nature. But in fact, the strength of her divine nature at this moment was no less than that of heavenly mandate, and heavenly mandate had refined a drop of true sacred blood. "Tell me, where are the flaws in my disguise?" Lu Yi asked. Yu Meng did not know the origin of Lu Yi, let alone what his temper was like. But now that she had become his blood servant, there was no room for resistance. She immediately told him everything, as expected of the person who knew Lingze the best in the world. Lu Ye's disguise was indeed lacking in many areas. Naturally, this was because Lu Yi could not fully accept Lingze's memories. What he received was only fragments of Lingze's scattered memories. In the following time, under the guidance of Yu Meng, Lu Yi constantly corrected his expression, posture, and tone of speech, until even Yu Meng could not see any flaws. And she finally knew what happened to Lingze. She had no reaction to Lingze's death at all. Instead, she was a little sad about Heavenly Mandate's death, but that was all. The blood breeds had always been indifferent to the fetters of their kin. Those ordinary blood breeds did not even know who their parents were. The day of the World Edge Pavilion's meeting finally came. In Lingze's territory, Lu Yi rode a bloody light and rushed toward the World Edge Pavilion. Ma Shangxi and Yu Meng accompanied him. Lu Yi did not want to take them with him, but as a blood saint, it would be inexcusable if no one accompanied him when he went out, so he had no choice but to take them with him. As he moved forward, he could clearly feel the aura of Nicho appearing in all directions of the Blood Jade world. These were obviously the Nicho of the Blood Jade world. There were more than 10 Nicho in the entire Blood Jade world. Their overall strength was not weak. There were even 2 at the peak of Nicho, the 2 ranked above Ling Zhe. But right now, Lu Yi could only sense the aura of 8 sunshine auras. Because some of the blood breeds were not in the Blood Jade world, he could not contact them for the time being. The World Edge Pavilion was not too far from Ling Zhe's territory. It only took Lu Yi an hour to reach his destination. This was actually an island. It was also the place where the Nicho of the blood breeds gathered to discuss important matters. This time, the insect race's envoy was naturally received here. Usually, there were only a few blood breeds guarding the island, but it was much more lively today. There was a quaint pavilion on the island. It was not too big, but it was the symbol of the power of the entire Blood Jade world. End of chapter. Chapter 2057. When Lu Yi brought Ma Shangxi and Yu Meng to the World Edge Pavilion, another vampire, Ri Zhao, just happened to arrive. Vampires usually had a slender physique, but the vampire Ri Zhao who came was burly. At first glance, he looked like a ferocious beast that walked upright. There were 2 attendants behind him, and one of them had Yu Yao's cultivation. It was unknown if they were his blood servants. Lu Yi met his gaze and immediately saw the disdain in the other's eyes. The next moment, the 2 figures stood at the entrance of the World Edge Pavilion, staring at each other. Their auras surged as they clashed fiercely. Ling Zhe was the 3rd strongest in the Blood Jade realm, while the burly one in front of him was the 4th. His name was Feng Wudi. He wasn't originally called Feng Wudi, but he changed his name after returning from a trip. In any case, a vampire's name had nothing to do with their family's inheritance, and there were no rules. They could call themselves whatever they wanted. Most importantly, Ling Zhe was not on good terms with Feng Wudi. The territories of the 2 holy sages were close to each other, and the blood breeds under them would often have some friction. Furthermore, Feng Wudi had always felt that he was stronger than Ling Zhe, so he could not stand the fact that Ling Zhe was ranked 3rd. The 2 saint sovereigns had many years of enmity between them. Now that they met, it was natural for them to clash. Fortunately, Lu Ye's foundation was strong enough. Otherwise, he would have been exposed. Even so, he couldn't hold on for too long. After all, he was only an early-stage Ri Zhao. Pretending to be a late-stage Ri Zhao consumed too much energy, and he might not be able to continue at any time. But at this juncture, he couldn't back down. If he did, he wouldn't be Ling Zhe anymore. His expression was normal, but he was secretly anxious. He could only hold on for 30 breaths of time at most. Any longer and he would be exposed. He secretly made up his mind. If he really couldn't hold on, he would have to ask Ma Shangxi to help. Fortunately, after a short while, a dignified voice shouted, "Enough!" The next moment, an aura stronger than his and Feng Wudi's descended, forcibly separating the 2 entangled auras. Lu Yi and Feng Wudi both took a few steps back. When they looked again, an old vampire appeared in their eyes. Both Lu Yi and Feng Wudi bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Holy Master Qiu Tian." In the Blood Jade realm, Tong Tian was the oldest and had the highest seniority. Most importantly, he was the strongest. He had reached the peak of the Sunshine realm many years ago, and his holiness was stronger than Ling Zhe and Feng Wudi. He was the ruler of the entire Blood Jade realm. Today's meeting is of great importance. Don't make trouble in front of the insectoid emissary. Tong Tian reprimanded. He also knew about the enmity between Ling Zhe and Feng Wudi. He had tried to resolve it in the past but to no avail, so he no longer cared about it. Understood. Both Lu Yi and Feng Wudi hurriedly complied. Tong Tian glanced at them again, then stepped into the World Edge Pavilion. Just as he entered, another vampire, Ri Zhao, arrived. He didn't even look at the 2 of them and entered directly. Lu Yi and Feng Wudi didn't say anything, because the 2nd strongest person of the Blood Jade realm was Zhuang Huaiyu, who was also at the peak of the Sunshine realm. She was also the most isolated vampire in the entire Blood Jade realm. She didn't even have her own territory and only cultivated peacefully on a spiritual mountain. Usually, even the other vampires, Rizhao, rarely saw her. If it weren't for this meeting, she wouldn't have appeared in such a place. After Zhuang Huaiyu walked in, Lu Yi and Feng Wudi both stepped forward and rushed into the World Edge Pavilion. In the end, no one took the initiative. On the second floor of the World Edge Pavilion, there was a long oval table. When Lu Yi walked in with his 2 blood servants, he saw that there were already 3 figures sitting there. 2 of them were the 2 vampires at the peak of the Sunshine Realm that he saw just now. The other one had obvious characteristics of the insect race. He had a thick carapace on his body and a long torso with 6 arms. Lu Yi didn't know what kind of insect he was. From Ling Zhe's memories, Lu Yi didn't find much information about this insect race messenger. After he came to the Blood Jade realm, he only met Tong Tian. The other vampires had never seen him before. At this moment, the insect race messenger was sitting at the highest position, with Tong Tian and Zhuang Huaiyu on his left and right. Lu Yi glanced around and sat down at the seat below Tong Tian. Feng Wudi sat directly opposite him and glared at Lu Yi fiercely, as if he wanted to eat him alive. Lu Yi didn't hold back and responded with the same glare. Tong Tian suddenly looked behind Lu Yi and asked with a smile, "Ling Zhe, is this your new blood warrior?" Lu Yi quickly retracted his gaze and replied in Ling Zhe's tone, "Yes, his name is Ma Shangxi. He's a citizen of my territory. He went out for a trip and obtained some opportunities, which allowed him to reach the peak of the Sunshine Realm." Ma Shangxi hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, Saint Venerables." Feng Wudi sneered, "A citizen of your territory? Aren't those in your territory your descendants? Hurry up and do a bloodline tracing. Who knows, this blood servant might be your son or grandson. Treat him well in the future." Lu Yi slammed the table and roared, "What did you say?" Feng Wudi looked at him with his nostrils. "What? You dare to do it but don't dare to admit it? Who doesn't know what kind of person you are, Saint Venerable Ling Zhe?" He then looked at Yu Meng beside Ma Shangxi. "This is your daughter, right? They say, your scent is so strong that I can smell it from so far away. I'll tear you apart." Lu Yi looked furious and stood up with killing intent. "Enough." Tong Tian looked annoyed and glared coldly at Feng Wudi. "Stop talking." Although there were some things that everyone knew, it wasn't good to talk about, especially when Ling Zhe wasn't the only Saint Venerable with this problem. "You sit down too." Tong Tian glanced at Lu Yi. Lu Yi said angrily, "Saint Venerable Tong Tian, it's him, sit down." Tong Tian's expression turned cold. Lu Yi reluctantly sat down. Tong Tian shook his head helplessly. He wanted to ask about Ma Shangxi's situation, but he lost interest and turned to the insectoid emissary. "Please excuse me." The insectoid emissary waved his hand. "It's fine. It's just that the situation is about to descend. This is an opportunity for both our races. The insectoids hope that the blood race can be more united. I'll do my best." Tong Tian nodded. Feng Wudi asked curiously, "Emissary, how should I address you?" The insectoid emissary said, "I'm Lice Dragon." Feng Wudi said, "Fellow Lice Dragon, I'm a straightforward person, so I'll be straight to the point. This situation, what does it mean?" Lu Ye's ears perked up. He also wanted to know this and couldn't help but give Feng Wudi a thumbs up. Lice Dragon shook his head. Tong Tian said, "Once everyone is here, fellow Lice Dragon will explain in detail. Don't worry." Feng Wudi had no choice but to wait. More and more blood race Saint Venerables arrived. After an incense stick's worth of time, everyone who could make it had arrived. Aside from the Lice Dragon, there were 8 other blood race Saint Venerables present. There was also a blood warrior named Ma Shangxi, and the rest were Yu Yao, who had followed the Saint Venerables to attend the ceremony. Those who could stand here were all highly valued by the Saint Venerables. There were less than 30 people in the entire pavilion. Tong Tian looked at Lice Dragon and nodded. "Everyone is here." The Louse Dragon stood up and looked around. "I'm sure you've all heard about the arrival of the major influence. Fellow Taoist Feng Wudi just asked me what the major influence meant. I'm sure you're all curious about that. All the holy sovereigns listened attentively. The situation is about to descend. It's an opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. All you need to know is that when this opportunity arrives, our insect race and blood race might be able to break free from the oppression of the other races. Not only that, we might even be able to stand above all the other races and become the rulers of the universe. Those few words stunned all the blood race holy sovereigns. Even the most pure Zhuang Huayue couldn't help but glance at Lice Dragon. She didn't know where he got his confidence from. Lice Dragon looked furious. Since ancient times, our insect race and blood race have always lived with our tails between our legs. The other races see us as ferocious beasts and are hostile to us. If it weren't for the fact that our two races aren't weak, we would have been wiped out a long time ago. After so many years of humiliation and suffering, we will become the rulers of the universe. He was in high spirits as if he could already see that day coming. On the other hand, the blood race holy sovereigns didn't have much of a reaction. It was mainly because Lice Dragon's words were too vague. For so many years, the insect race and blood race had lived like this. Suddenly, someone told them that their days were coming to an end. Not only that, they could also become the rulers of the universe. No one could agree with that. Feng Wudi couldn't help but ask, "Fellow Lice Dragon, it's very hard for us to believe what you're saying. Plus, you didn't explain what the general situation is." Lice Dragon smiled. "Haven't you all noticed that there have been some strange changes in the universe recently?" Feng Wudi was startled. Then he seemed to have thought of something. "You mean the activity of the universe's energy? That's only one of them." Lice Dragon nodded. "If you've investigated some of the space wonders, you should be able to notice that the laws inside many of them have changed." The holy sovereigns were startled. If it was just the activity of the universe's energy, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, if the laws inside the space wonders had changed, then it was no small matter. Space wonders were born along with the universe. The laws inside wouldn't change easily. Once there was a change, it wouldn't be a small matter. If there was more than one space wonder, then it would be even bigger. Lu Yi couldn't help but fall into deep thought. The changes in the Wanxiang Sea proved that Lice Dragon's words were true. There was also the insect path that connected the 9 states to the Wanxiang Sea. Previously, he only thought that he was lucky. When the 9 states was in danger, the insect path just happened to be connected. However, what if this was also the result of some changes in the universe? End of chapter. Chapter 2058. This is the arrival of the general trend? A vampire Saint Master asked in confusion. But what did this change in the entire universe have to do with the two races? This is only a sign of the general trend. The Laos Dragon tapped the table. Now that this sign has appeared, the trend will arrive in a few decades or even a century. By then, it will be the insect race and blood race's chance. Tong Tian pondered for a moment before asking, "Dao friend, there's something I don't understand." The Laos Dragon looked at him. "Dao friend Tong Tin, please speak." "This trend will definitely affect the entire cosmos. I won't ask what will happen to the cosmos when the time comes. I just want to know why it's only our two races' chance? Do the other races have nothing to do with this?" The Laos Dragon smiled as if it had expected this. "Of course they have something to do with it. It's just that the other races don't have our advantages. To them, the general trend will only bring disaster." "Why is that?" Zhuang Huayue was confused. This was what all the vampire saints didn't understand. The Laos Dragon smiled mysteriously. "This naturally has to do with the uniqueness of our two races. The insect race and blood race are both special existences in the entire cosmos. Otherwise, why would they be rejected and suppressed by all living beings?" Lu Yi thought to himself, "Isn't it because the insect and blood race have done all sorts of evil? Wherever the insect race went, the realms would be annihilated. Wherever the blood race went, all living beings would be annihilated. Such a race was naturally hated by everyone." But now, the Laos Dragon was talking about the uniqueness of the two races. Tong Tian asked, "What's so special about our two races?" The louse dragon glanced at him and shook its head. I don't know either, but this was passed down by the high priest of our race. I'm just telling the truth. The high priest of your race. Tong Tian's expression turned serious. The high priest of the insect race was a legendary powerhouse. No one knew how long he had lived until now. It was said that his strength had reached a level of mastery. The vampire saints might not have believed the louse dragon's words alone, but if it came from the high priest of the insect race, then they had to reconsider. The louse dragon spoke again. I'm not the only one contacting the nobles. There are other envoys from the nobles' domains. Before we left, I remember the high priest saying that the nobles should have been able to sense the situation, but because of the fall of the blood ancestor, the nobles lost this ability. When the blood ancestor was mentioned, the Saint Venerable's expressions suddenly became pious. Everything that the blood race had now was given to them by the blood ancestor. Even though the blood ancestor had fallen tens of thousands of years ago, her bloodline was still being passed down and had occupied a place in the starry sky. The lice dragon's words made Tong Tian think. Fellow Taoist, you mean that the high priest can sense the general trend? The louse dragon nodded. That's right. That's why we contacted the vampires. We hope that the nobles can consolidate their forces and wait. Tong Tian asked again. Did the high priest mention if there are any other experts who can sense the general trend? The high priest said that there might be experts from other races who have sensed something, but he is the only one in the entire galaxy who can clearly sense the general situation. Other than him, there is no one else. There was a moment of silence. After a long while, Yuan Tian said in a slow voice, Fellow Taoist, we have full faith in the high priestess's words, but you're not very clear about the overall situation, so even if we want to cooperate, we don't know where to start. Clearly, he wanted to gather more information. The louse dragon shook its head. It's not that I'm unclear, but that I don't know much myself. Everything I've said today is merely conveying the high priest's words. He didn't mention it much, so we can't learn more about it. Fellow Taoist, you should understand that the high priest is old and in a state of hibernation most of the time. If it weren't for the fact that this matter is too important, he wouldn't have woken up. He has some special orders. After a slight pause, he continued, That's why I've come to Bloodjade this time. If the nobles want to grasp this opportunity, then please make a decision as soon as possible. The Saint Venerables of the blood race looked at each other, unable to make a decision. According to the insectoids, the blood race wanted to consolidate their forces and wait for the general trend to descend. Since they wanted to consolidate, then the blood race's forces had to be concentrated. However, the blood race's domains were extremely scattered, so it wouldn't be easy to accomplish this. When the time came, they would definitely have to give up most of the domains and gather all the experts in one domain. However, the blood race had been doing this for so many years. How could they do this just because of some uncertain information? I've heard about the general trend. A voice suddenly sounded in the silence. Many pairs of eyes looked over and found that the one who spoke was Saint Lingze. Tong Tian was curious. Lingze, where did you hear about this? Lu Yi turned to look at him and said casually, I wonder if Saint Venerable Tong Tian has heard of Feng Rumo? Tong Tian's expression changed. That Feng Rumo who tried to control the Merak sword but was hunted down by the Merak sword chi? Lu Yi was stunned. The reason he mentioned Feng Rumo was mainly because this person's level was high enough and had nothing to do with him. Most importantly, Feng Rumo was very mysterious. Who knew that Tong Tian actually knew this person and even mentioned the Merak sword? It seemed that the sword chi that hunted down Feng Rumo was really the power of the Merak sword. After calming himself down, Lu Yi nodded. That's him. A Saint Venerable asked curiously, Lingze, how did you come to know Feng Rumo? Lu Yi suddenly revealed a look of reminiscence. That was many years ago. This senior met him by chance when I was traveling outside. He had been hunted down for who knows how many years and was in a sorry state, so he asked me for some food. Hearing him say that an expert like Feng Rumo actually asked for some food, the Saint Venerable's expressions became very strange. However, Lu Yi said it calmly and was not lying. After all, it really happened. Then, in return, he told me some things. It was about the general trend. He said. At this point, Lu Yi paused and looked around. Under the attention of the Saint Venerables, he activated his blood technique and enveloped the surroundings. In an instant, the entire World Edge Pavilion was covered in blood. The Saint Venerables did not mind. After all, this matter might involve a huge secret. It was always right to be careful. What did he say? An impatient Saint Venerable could not wait and asked. Lu Yi turned his head and looked in his direction. He continued to activate his blood technique and smiled. He said, "All of you should die." He had already found out what he needed to find out. It seemed that the lice dragon had no other information to provide. Since that was the case, there was no need to delay any longer. All the Saint Venerables were stunned. They did not understand what Lu Yi meant. Feng Wudi was even more furious. However, almost at the same time as Lu Yi finished speaking, a sudden change occurred. In the blood-red wrapping, spirit runes suddenly appeared. Almost every Saint Venerable had a corresponding spirit rune in front of them. At the same time, in Fengsuan Mountain, the talent tree clone's magic power surged, and void spirit runes appeared beside it. The Rizhao of Fengsuan Mountain, who had already received his orders, also joined in at this moment. On the second floor of the World Edge Pavilion, a dense blood-red color surged, and a sea of blood spread out. The Rizhao of Fengsuan Mountain used the void spirit runes to teleport here. They did not care and only followed Lu Ye's orders. They instantly unleashed their strongest killing moves and charged forward. This sudden change caused the expressions of all the Saint Venerables to change drastically. No one expected that in the Blood Jade realm, where so many strong people gathered, they would be ambushed. And the instigator was Saint Venerable Ling Zhe. These Saint Venerables reacted quickly. Almost at the same time as they sensed that something was wrong, they began to activate their own power. However, an extremely terrifying Saint Venerable suddenly exploded from the blood-red color. Muffled groans sounded one after another. Even Saint Venerable Qiu Tian, who was the strongest present, felt his qi and blood stagnate. His strength suddenly plummeted. It was a strength of Saint Venerable that he had never felt before. The Saint Venerable that he had always been proud of was so weak in front of such strength that it could not withstand a single blow. It was almost suppressed without any resistance. Then, a rune sword appeared in his vision. Lu Yi purposely assigned Qiu Tian to Chen Xianhai, who had come to support him. The powerful vitality that belonged to Rizhao collapsed one after another at this moment. After a brief moment of chaos, all the Blood Clan members present, regardless of their strength or cultivation, died on the spot. Even the Yu Yao attendants that they had brought in were all killed in the aftermath of the battle. Moreover, all the Saint Venerables were distracted by Lu Ye's mystifying act and were suppressed by his terrifying saint nature. It was natural for such a result to occur. Only Lice Dragon survived. After all, he was not a Blood Clan member, and his strength was not bad. Without the suppression of his bloodline, he would not be so easily killed. At this moment, Lice Dragon was dumbfounded. His mind was in a mess, and he had no idea what had happened. He had been listening attentively to Lu Ye's words just now, but then something happened so suddenly. He could sense that Qiu Tian and the other Blood Clan members were all dead. This made his hair stand on end. He had no idea who had attacked. Even a strong person like Qiu Tian had been killed without being able to fight back. His survival instinct made him want to escape, but Lu Ye's blood technique had many restrictions on him. He was also entangled by Rizhao of the Hominid clan. How could he have the strength to escape? He used his divine telekinesis to sense the surroundings. He just wanted to understand what was going on. However, it was too late. After killing their opponents, Rizhao and the Hominid clan members all looked at Lice Dragon, who was still stubbornly resisting. His body stiffened. Capture this one alive. Don't kill it. Lu Ye's voice was heard. Almost at the same time that the World Edge Pavilion attacked, a group of uninvited guests came to the bug hive hovering in the starry sky beside the Blood Jade realm. Rizhao, Lu Jin, and Li Wanning led a group of elite hominid cultivators to the bug hive. There was still Rizhao of the insect clan left in the hive. He did not follow Lice Dragon to the Blood Jade realm, but his strength was only at the early stage of Rizhao. He was no match for Lu Zhen and Li Wanning. End of chapter. Chapter 2059. The chaos inside the World's Edge Pavilion only lasted for a short 10 breaths before it subsided. Although the members of the Blood Clan outside sensed the powerful magic power fluctuations inside, none of them dared to barge in rashly. When the entire World's Edge Pavilion shattered and many unfamiliar figures charged out, the members of the Blood Clan outside could no longer resist. Wu Qima personally escorted the captured lice dragon. With the cooperation of Lu Ye's original body and talent tree clone, they sent him into the western Fengsuan mountain through the void spirit pattern. Once there, with Lu Ye's talent tree clone guarding, the heavily injured lice dragon could no longer escape. The battle in the Blood Jade world was not over yet. The blood race in the World Edge Pavilion was quickly slaughtered. Many hominins scattered in all directions, each finding a direction and rushing out. Blood flowed like a river wherever they passed. Not only that, in the ruins of the World Edge Pavilion, Lu Yi maintained a huge void spirit pattern. From the void spirit pattern, hominin cultivators constantly came to support. According to the previously formed teams, they attacked in all directions. Today was the day the Blood Jade world was destroyed. Ma Shangxi and Lu Ye's newly recruited blood warriors were not idle either. Although they were all from the blood race, now that they were under Lu Ye's command, they could only follow his will. Moreover, the blood race were not kind people. Now, it was just a matter of winning and losing. The entire realm fell into chaos in a very short time. Except for a few lucky blood race cultivators who sensed that something was wrong escaped into the starry sky, the rest were not lucky. The hominin race would not show mercy to the blood race, nor would they care about bullying the weak. From the hominin race's point of view, all the blood race deserved to die. At this time, Lu Yi had already arrived somewhere in the Blood Jade world. The entire Blood Jade world was similar to the Blood Extreme world. If the Blood Extreme world was the left arm of the Blood Ancestor, then the Blood Jade world was the right arm of the Blood Ancestor. Therefore, the overall structure of the two great realms was basically the same, but there were some subtle differences. There was no need for him to contribute to the battle in the realm. The blood race was all dead, and the hominin race was destined to win. What he had to consider now was to repeat the events of the past and let the western Fengsuan mountain bring the Blood Jade world back to the 9 states. Of course, it was not difficult for him to do something that he had already done once. Right now, he was at the crook of the Blood Ancestor's right arm. This was a node of the Blood Ancestor's right arm and the node of the entire realm. Standing in such a position, Lu Yi clearly felt that his connection with the Blood Jade realm had become much closer. He immediately understood that he had found the right place. Following that feeling, he used his means to go deeper into the ground. After spending half a day, Lu Yi finally arrived at a certain location underground. At this place, his connection with the Blood Jade realm became closer. This was undoubtedly one of the Blood Ancestor's spirit cavities. Lu Yi sat down cross-legged and immersed himself in it. Very quickly, his enormous consciousness covered the entire domain with this spiritual cavity as the starting point. Only Lu Yi, who had refined the precious blood of the Blood Ancestor, could do this. Even a member of the blood race like Sacred Venerate Qiu Tian was not qualified to do so. All of a sudden, Lu Yi felt his body become extremely heavy. The feeling he had felt before resurfaced in his mind once more, as if he was wearing heavy armor. He saw that the entire Blood Jade realm was in an abyss of suffering. Countless blood race cultivators were fleeing for their lives, and numerous humanoid cultivators were wantonly slaughtering. He saw several of his blood servants following his orders, sweeping through everything in their path. There were also many terrified blood slaves. The purge of the Blood Jade realm took only a few days. Although the entire realm was not small, with so many humanoid cultivators taking action, the blood race was powerless in the face of absolute power. A few days later, the dust had settled. Apart from Lu Ye's blood servants, there were no more blood race cultivators left in the realm. However, there were still many blood slaves enslaved by the blood race. At this moment, They were all panicking and at a loss for what to do. Under the control of the Talent Tree clone, the Heart Mountain in the west had arrived at a suitable location. Lu Ye's main body was there. He reached out and a pestle that was several meters long appeared in his hand. This was the ancestral artifact he had obtained from the blood extinction realm. With this ancestral artifact, Lu Yi could better mobilize the blood extinction realm. He did not know if he could use it here. He might as well give it a try. With the ancestral artifact in hand, Lu Yi activated his magic power and raised his brow. It worked, because the heavy feeling on his body was obviously much lighter. Under Lu Ye's control, the entire Blood Jade realm began to shake. At the front of his huge right arm, 6 fingers spread open and then slowly closed, grasping the Heart Mountain in the west. In the starry sky, the sunshine cultivators of the humanoid race gathered and quietly watched this scene. Although I've seen it once, seeing it again today is still shocking. Zhang Kuan sighed. It was hard to imagine how strong the blood ancestor was back then. How could such a powerful existence be killed by the humanoid race's ancestor? Even his corpse was torn apart. Compared to the might of their ancestor, although they had reached the Sunshine Realm today, they were still inferior. The Talent Tree clone lifted the isolation of the Heart Mountain in the west. As a result, the west was once again pulled by the core and swept into the depths of the starry sky, moving the Blood Jade realm. However, because they had passed through a bug path before arriving here, it would take a few more years for the west to return to the 9 states. But compared to the harvest, a few years of waiting was worth it. From now on, the Blood Jade realm would no longer exist in this galaxy. Everything was settled. A day later, many experts gathered at the Heart Mountain in the west. Lu Yi had also returned. There are many blood slaves in the Blood Jade realm. They've all moved to the headquarters of the Heart Mountain. However, they've been enslaved by the kindred for generations and have long since lost their original natures. It might take a few more generations for them to slowly recover. Ran Dongxing reported the current situation. Against the Blood Clan, the Homunculus clan would not show mercy, but the enslaved blood thralls were also pitiful people. If they were left alone, during the migration process of the Blood Jade realm, not many of these weak blood thralls would survive. After all, the migration of such a large realm in the starry sky would cause the environment of the realm to change greatly. Moving them to the Heart Mountain in the west was the only way. This was the consensus of all the Sunshine cultivators. Once the west reached the 9 states, these blood slaves could be sent to the 9 states to settle down. How's the situation with the lice dragon? Lu Yi turned to look at Su Pu, who had come from the south. After the lice dragon was sent over, it was Su Pu who cooperated with Xia Ingyue to interrogate it. It was mainly Su Pu who had learned some torture methods in the past, and it happened to be useful this time. The other Sunshine cultivators also looked over. Although they had obtained a lot of information from the World Edge Pavilion's meeting through Lu Ye's Talent Tree clone, there were many things that were unclear. It would be better if they could get more accurate information from the lice dragon. Su Pu shook his head and said, "The lice dragon doesn't know much. What he knows is what the insect race high priest told him. He didn't hide anything from the kindred Sunshine cultivators." After a few days of torture, the lice dragon was already exhausted, and even its soul was almost shattered. Under such means, Su Pu believed that the lice dragon couldn't hide anything. All the Sunshine cultivators frowned. Why was the arrival of the general trend an opportunity for the insect race and the blood race? Why was the insect race high priest the only one who could sense the general trend? Why couldn't the other experts? There were many things that they didn't understand and couldn't find anyone to ask. However, it was undeniable that there were some changes in the starry sky, and the activity of the starry sky spirit energy was only the most basic. Junior brother Lu, the Wanxiang Sea is a mixed bag of good and bad people. There are many exchanges with various galaxies, and it's convenient to contact them. Perhaps we'll need your help in this matter. Chen Xianhai turned to look at Lu Yi. Lu Yi nodded and said, "I have the same plan. When we return to the Wanxiang Sea this time, I'll spread the news and see if anyone knows anything." Chen Xianhai nodded. "There's no rush. The insect race said that it'll take at least a few decades to 100 years, so there's still time to deal with it. Zhang Kun said, "We'll pass by many galaxies in the west. When the time comes, we'll see if there's a chance to visit some of the bigger galaxies and find out the situation. Actually, the best way is to go to the Insect Emperor realm, capture the insect race high priest, and ask him in person." The Insect Emperor realm. Chen Xianhai shook his head slowly. That's not a place to trespass. Seeing his secretive look, Lu Yi was curious. What's so special about the Insect Emperor realm? After so many years of wandering the stars, his knowledge and experience had increased greatly. However, there were still some things that he didn't understand, such as the Insect Emperor realm. He only knew that this was the base camp of the insect race, and that all the hives floating in the stars came from the Insect Emperor realm. Chen Xianhai smiled bitterly. "Junior brother, there's something you don't know. The Insect Emperor realm is essentially a huge magnetite star. The entire realm is made up of high-quality magnetite ores, and the magnetite force field is chaotic and dense. No matter how strong you are, you won't be able to do anything if you fall in." Lu Ye's expression turned serious. The magnetite star. He was no stranger to the magnetite force field. The chaotic explosion zone near the Jade Conch galaxy was filled with all kinds of chaotic magnetite force fields, and from time to time, there would be magnetite storms. It was extremely dangerous. It was unimaginable how strong the magnetite force field of a magnetite star made up purely of high-quality magnetite ores was. In such an environment, any cultivator's cultivation would drop drastically due to the interference of the magnetite force field. If Ri Zhao were to go in, he would probably only have Yu Yao's cultivation left. However, the special nature of the insect race gave them a natural resistance to strange forces like the magnetite force field. Lu Yi had experienced this for a long time. When the Nine States Army attacked the underground hives of the insect race, they used the insect race's blood to refine some special secret medicine. They smeared it on the cultivators' bodies to resist the interference of the magnetite force field. It could be said that the Insect Emperor realm was a place that was naturally suitable for the insect race. No other race could establish themselves there. Thank you for the reward from the chief of the Young Deer Alliance. Thank you for your kindness. Long live the chief. End of chapter. Chapter 2060. Lu Yi had always been curious about one thing. Since the insect and blood races were hated by everyone in the universe, why didn't the other races work together to destroy them? Logically speaking, it was possible. No matter how strong the insect and blood races were, they couldn't stop the other races working together. Now he slowly understood. The insect and blood races both had their own foundation. The Insect Emperor realm's uniqueness was the reason why the insect race could sit back and relax. It could be said that as long as the insect race occupied the Insect Emperor realm, they would never face the threat of extinction. While the Blood Kindred's region did not have as many unique advantages as the Insect Emperor's region, every region had their own ancestral implement. They could use the ancestral implement to mobilize the power of the region, and they were equally capable of protecting themselves. It seemed easy to take down the Blood Jade realm and the Blood Extreme realm, but that was because Lu Yi played a huge role. When they attacked the Blood Extreme realm, he stopped the blood race from mobilizing the realm's power by himself. This time, the blood race was even more miserable. He worked together with the dwarf race's Sunshine to wipe them all out. Even a top saint venerable like Tong Tian died mysteriously, not to mention the other blood race members. Lu Ye's uniqueness could be said to be the blood race's nemesis. The matter in the Blood Jade realm was completely over. A few days later, Lu Yi brought Chen Xianhai and the others back to the core. They reaped a lot from the battle. Not only did they get the Blood Jade realm, but they also got the entire realm's resources. It was an unimaginable number. When they returned from the west and unified Mount Minuscule, Little Nine could also devour the Blood Jade realm's resources. It was killing two birds with one stone. Lu Yi didn't stay at Mount Minuscule for long and quickly left. Sunshine's cultivation, the soul-subduing secret skill, and the transformation of the talent tree required time and resources. It was inconvenient to do these things outside, so he had to go to the Wanxiang Sea and the ancestral land of the soul race. He didn't know what the insect race was talking about, but he felt a sense of urgency. He had to improve his cultivation as much as possible before the arrival of the insect race. That way, no matter what changes the insect race would bring, he would have the ability to protect himself and his family. The 9 regions had become bigger again. Today's 9 regions was more than twice as large as before. This was obviously the result of Yuluo's completion of the fusion. Now, the 3 great realms of the entire galaxy had merged into one and were truly bound together. Lu Yi didn't intend to return to the 9 regions, but he soon sensed something. He revealed a surprised expression and turned around to rush in the direction of the 9 regions. Not long after, Lu Yi landed in front of the Guardian Hall of the Tian continent. Looking up, he saw a familiar burly figure standing under the reincarnation tree avatar. His hands were behind his back as he looked at the seemingly withered reincarnation tree avatar with a look of reminiscence on his face. Lu Yi walked towards him. After a short while, she stopped beside him and softly called out, "Senior." Ma Bin turned to look at him and smiled. He raised his hand and patted the reincarnation tree's avatar. "When I was young, I was playful with a senior martial brother. We jumped up and down on this tree. One day, we accidentally broke a branch and got beaten up. We couldn't get out of bed for a few days. My master didn't show any mercy." The corners of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. He didn't know what to say. It seemed that Senior Ma Bin also had a complete childhood. The location of the Guardian Hall was decided by Lu Yi. It was mainly because the reincarnation tree's avatar was here. The Guardian of the 9 regions could take care of this avatar. This place was also the ruins of the strongest sect in the 9 regions 10,000 years ago, the Human Emperor sect. Yang Qing had told Lu Yi about this. Ma Bin was from the Human Emperor sect. It could be said that he grew up here. In the past 10,000 years, even though Ma Bin knew that the 9 regions might be in some corner of the starry sky, he had never thought of looking for it. Even when he met Lu Yi and learned about the recent situation of the 9 regions, he didn't want to come back and take a look. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he didn't dare to. He was afraid that his troubles would bring disaster to the 9 regions, so he tried his best to weaken or even cut off his connection with the 9 regions. But now he didn't have such concerns. In the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he got more information about the 9 regions and learned about the battle between the 9 regions and Zixen. The 9 regions now had enough power to protect themselves. So he came back to take a look at his homeland that he had been away from for a long time. At first glance, although the current 9 regions was not at its peak, the current prosperity was beyond his expectations. He was relieved. "Senior, have you recovered from your injuries?" Lu Yi asked. "Almost." Ma Bin nodded. "This is all thanks to you." He didn't expect that Lu Yi, a junior of the 9 regions, would be able to do so well in a place like the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Now, he had even become the master of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. This was something that even the Human Emperor couldn't do back then, and Lu Yi was only in the early sunshine stage. If it weren't for Lu Yi, his previous injuries would have gradually worsened, and his cultivation would slowly disappear. He would have died of old age in some corner of the world. "Senior, you're too polite. Your injuries were caused by me. I haven't thanked you yet." Lu Yi sighed. When the Azura field closed that day, if it weren't for Ma Bin protecting him, he wouldn't have fought with Chang Feng and the others to the death. It was a pity that Chang Feng ran too fast and couldn't catch up with him that day with Xiaoguo. Otherwise, he could have taken revenge on Ma Bin as well. Ma Bin didn't say anything else. He just stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. An extremely mysterious power surged out, and then an ancient disc appeared in his hand. Lu Yi was stunned. He felt an extremely familiar aura from the disc. Xiao Jiao's rabbit figure suddenly appeared beside him. He bared his teeth and pounced at Ma Bin, shouting, "Give it back to me." Lu Yi had never seen Xiao Jiao so anxious before. He was surprised, but he wasn't nervous because he knew that Ma Bin wouldn't do anything to Xiao Jiao. Ma Bin chuckled and waved his other hand. Xiao Jiao, who was pouncing aggressively, flew back and fell into Lu Ye's arms. Lu Yi hugged him. Xiao Jiao's rabbit eyes turned red. The entire 9 provinces shook as a terrifying aura gathered in the sky. Lu Yi quickly patted Xiao Jiao. Senior doesn't have any evil intentions. Don't be nervous. Artifact spirit. Ma Bin looked at Xiao Jiao with interest. That's unexpected. He asked Xiao Jiao, do you recognize me? Xiao Jiao said angrily, I don't recognize you. Don't try to get close to me. Then return my main body to me. Otherwise, Lu Yi will beat you to death. He turned to Lu Yi and said, Lu Yi, quickly go. He stole my main body. Lu Yi finally understood that the disc in Ma Bin's hand was Xiao Jiao's main body. No wonder the aura was so familiar. To be honest, all these years, Lu Yi only knew that Xiao Jiao was the artifact spirit of the Heavenly Fate Disc. As for what the Heavenly Fate Disc looked like, he really hadn't seen it. All this time, he had only seen Xiao Jiao. But he didn't think that he would see it today. Alright. Lu Yi comforted. Senior Ma Bin is a cultivator of the human emperor sect from 10,000 years ago. Your main body was created by him, so he won't do you any harm. HM? Xiao Jiao was dumbfounded. Ma Bin played with the Heavenly Fate Disc and slowly said, saying that I participated in the creation is just putting gold on my face. At that time, I had just been promoted to a constellation. Also, the Heavenly Fate Disc was actually not created. It was a treasure that was accidentally obtained by a top expert of my sect. We only thought of a way to activate its power. It is actually a spiritual treasure of a supreme treasure. Spiritual treasure? Lu Yi was stunned. He lowered his head to look at Xiao Jiao. You are a spiritual treasure? Xiao Jiao was dumbfounded. I didn't create it. Am I a spiritual treasure? That's why I am very curious. How did a spiritual treasure give birth to its own will? Ma Bin looked at Xiao Jiao. Logically speaking, a spiritual treasure shouldn't have this kind of change. Lu Yi said, Xiao Jiao's birth seems to be due to the combination of the artifact spirit of the Heavenly Fate Disc and the will of the 9 states. That doesn't make sense. Ma Bin slowly shook his head. He looked at Xiao Jiao and asked, Can you sense anything? Sense what? Xiao Jiao asked back. Between spiritual treasures and supreme treasures, there is an invisible connection. Since you have already given birth to intelligence, you should be able to sense the corresponding supreme treasure. Xiao Jiao shook his head. There is nothing. Ma Bin revealed a thoughtful expression. Clearly, he didn't understand. Xiao Jiao's eyes turned and he suddenly jumped out of Lu Ye's arms. Displaying a speed that Lu Yi had never seen before, he snatched the Heavenly Fate Disc from Ma Bin's hands. In a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Only a complacent laughter could be heard. Xiao Jiao's temperament is a bit childish. Lu Yi explained. Ma Bin nodded, not taking it to heart. He just said, Lu Yi, I have to go. Lu Yi was startled and immediately said, Senior doesn't need to worry about Chang Feng. Ma Bin said a few years ago that when he recovered from his injuries, he would go find Chang Feng and kill him to vent Lu Ye's anger. Now that he had recovered from his injuries, he naturally had to set off. It's not just about Chang Feng. Ma Bin waved his hand. When one's cultivation reaches my level, there is no longer any room for improvement. This situation has been maintained for many years. But in recent years, I suddenly felt something different. The entire starry sky seems to have undergone some wonderful changes, giving me the possibility of further improvement. So, I have to go out and take a look to find my future direction. In recent years? Lu Yi frowned. How long ago was that? Not many years. Why? Ma Bin looked at him. It's like this, Senior. This time, I went to the Western Heart Mountain and attacked a blood race realm. It just so happened that I encountered some things there. He immediately recounted the various things that happened in the Blood Jade realm, emphasizing the arrival of the great trend mentioned by the insect race. Senior is experienced and knowledgeable. Do you know what the great trend is? Lu Yi asked in the end. Ma Bin shook his head. I have never heard of it. If it is as you say, then these feelings I have in recent years, aren't they related to the great trend? Chapter 2061. Ma Bin's cultivation had reached a bottleneck many years ago. It was only in recent years that the bottleneck that bound him began to loosen a little. This was obviously related to the arrival of the general trend that Lu Yi mentioned. After thinking for a while, Ma Bin said, "Although I've never heard of the arrival of a major force, I know that there are many top-notch sunshine in the starry sky. When they can't increase their cultivation, they will cultivate some special techniques. It is said that these techniques are used to prepare for a certain opportunity in the future. However, since ancient times, there have been countless sunshine who have done this, but they have never really been used." Lu Yi knew that he was talking about something like doppelgangers and inner alchemy techniques. Take Su Yuqing and Chen Xianhai for example. They didn't know about the general trend either. The reason why they refined their inner alchemy and talisman swords was to prepare for a future opportunity. This was a saying passed down from ancient books. As for what this opportunity was, they didn't know. Who knew how many of their ancestors had done this before them? I'll keep an eye on this. If I have any concrete information, I'll come back and tell you, Ma Bin said. Then I'll have to trouble you. By the way, the three-world island is buying fire elemental resources in large quantities. You need them for your cultivation, right? Ma Bin remembered something. Although he had been recuperating in seclusion in the Spirit Jade Mine, he still paid a lot of attention to the three-world island. It was not surprising that he knew about this. Others might not know why Lu Yi needed so many fire elemental resources, but he knew. When Zhao Nian was cultivating, he also needed a lot of fire elemental resources. This was obviously because of the Dao tree. Lu Yi nodded. If you need them in the future and the resources in the Wanxiang Sea can't satisfy you, go to the Hengyue Galaxy. You might find something there. Hengyue Galaxy? Lu Yi thought about it. He had never heard of this galaxy. There were no spiritual islands named after this galaxy on the Wanxiang Sea. This meant that this galaxy's foundation was not strong. That's the galaxy where the 9 states used to be. However, they changed their name after the 9 states disappeared. Ma Bin left. He didn't even use the insect path to return to the Wanxiang Sea. Instead, he flew directly into the depths of the universe. Lu Yi didn't know when he would see him again. However, what Ma Bin had mentioned earlier left him at a loss. According to the information obtained from the Blood Jade realm, the insect and blood races would reap huge benefits when the general trend descended. They might even have the chance to rule the starry sky. This was undoubtedly a disaster for all the other races. But in fact, Ma Bin even felt that his bottleneck was loosening a little. There was no doubt that this loosening would become more and more obvious as the general trend advanced. Perhaps one day, Ma Bin's cultivation might have a breakthrough. Ma Bin was not the only supreme expert in this starry sky. In that case, the arrival of the general trend might not necessarily be a bad thing. For a cultivator like Ma Bin who had not made any progress in his cultivation after so many years, it was actually a great thing. Lu Yi returned to Mount Fengsuan and found Chen Xianhai, asking about his situation. In Lu Ye's perception, Chen Xianhai and Ma Bin should be experts on the same level. How could Chen Xianhai not be able to sense Ma Bin's feelings? However, after some discussion, Lu Yi learned that Chen Xianhai and Ma Bin's situations were not the same. In terms of cultivation, the two were indeed on the same level. They had both reached the limit of the starry sky and were in a state where they could not advance any further. However, Ma Bin already had his own Dao foundation, while Chen Xianhai was still working hard on this step. Therefore, even if their cultivations were the same, Ma Bin would be much stronger in a real fight. Looking at the entire starry sky, there might not be many powerhouses who had cast their own Dao foundation. Lu Yi had once asked Ma Bin about his Dao foundation because Ma Bin's injuries were related to his Dao foundation and he needed to recuperate in the Spirit Jade Mine. Therefore, he had a vague understanding of Dao foundations. However, it was only today that he understood how difficult it was for a cultivator to cast their own Dao foundation. After leaving Mount Fengsuan again, Lu Yi returned to the three-world island half a day later. He immediately summoned Old Tang. A moment later, He Baichuan came to Lu Ye's palace and had a chat with him. Lu Ye was shocked. What? Old Tang is in seclusion? Why would he be in seclusion at such an old age? He Baichuan smiled. Island Lord, you may not know this, but Elder Tang suddenly had an epiphany a few months ago. He said that he might be about to break through, so he hurriedly went into seclusion and has not come out since. Lu Yi was dumbfounded. Old Tang is about to break through? Are you sure? Old Tang's potential had long been exhausted. When he came to the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he was already in the middle stage of the Moon Jade Realm. Even now, he was still in the middle stage of the Moon Jade Realm. He knew this himself, so he had never stopped working hard on his cultivation. He had always been helping Lu Yi manage the three-world island. However, today, He Baichuan told him that Old Tang was in seclusion and had the possibility of breaking through. How could Lu Yi not be shocked? Once Old Tang went into seclusion, the affairs of the three-world island were left to He Baichuan. Now, the 9 states controlled the 4 top spiritual islands of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Jiuyan oversaw the 10,000 Elephant Island, Su Yuqing oversaw the Fangsuan Island, and Luan Xiaoa and Yen Miao oversaw the Winged Sky Island, which was now renamed the Mermaid Island. The mermaid clan that had disappeared for many years had once again reappeared in front of the world. The teleportation formation between the 4 spiritual islands had long been completed and could be used at any time. With the 4 spiritual islands helping each other, and with a starry sky treasure like Small Melon as a deterrent, the 9 states' rule over the 10,000 Elephant Sea could be said to be unbreakable. Lu Yi was talking to He Baichuan when he suddenly looked outside. A familiar aura was rapidly approaching. After a while, Tang Jun's figure appeared. He sat down on the chair next to He Baichuan and sighed heavily. Lu Yi looked at him in confusion. Didn't you say that you were in seclusion? Why did you come out? Tang Jun sighed again. Can't you see that I have failed in my seclusion? Lu Yi looked at him suspiciously. Are you trying to slack off, or are you really going into seclusion? Tang Jun said angrily, What do you mean by slacking off? This old man has worked hard without complaint for so many years. I've given up so much for our three-world island. Look at how white my hair has become. Am I that kind of person in your eyes? You better apologize to me. Elder Tang, I am sorry. I have misunderstood you. Lu Yi apologized decisively. Tang Jun snorted. That's more like it. You really feel it? Lu Yi looked at him curiously. An old cultivator who had exhausted his potential actually had signs of a breakthrough. This was obviously not normal. Tang Jun nodded seriously. I do feel it, but it is not the time yet. Moreover, as time passes, this feeling is getting stronger. I am sure that if this situation continues for a few more years, I will definitely be able to break through my own shackles. He Baichuan said, Actually, Elder Tang isn't the only one who feels this way. I've been paying attention to the situation outside. Not to mention our island, there are many cultivators like Elder Tang on the other spiritual islands who feel the same way. There's more. Tang Jun looked at Lu Yi. You have not been to the 10,000 Elephant Sea recently, so you might not know. Imperial Spring Island has become a top-grade spiritual island. Imperial Spring Island. Lu Yi thought for a moment, and immediately remembered this spiritual island. This spiritual island was rather famous on the 10,000 Elephant Sea because it was a top-grade spiritual island with a good foundation. Elder Tang had told him previously that there were several cases of deserted islands turning into spiritual islands on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It had happened before, but it was not so frequent. Now that a top-grade spiritual island like Imperial Spring Island had become a top-grade spiritual island, this was a huge matter on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. The unparalleled island of the past and the current three-world island could become a top-grade spiritual island from a deserted island. That was because of the minor constellation palace. It was not a spontaneous change. It was because of Imperial Spring Island's upgrade. There is news from Square Island. The spiritual energy on the island is getting denser. Perhaps it will become a top-grade spiritual island in a few years. There are many spiritual islands like this on the 10,000 Elephant Sea, and they are all changing for the better. He Baichuan said. Many thoughts flashed through Lu Ye's mind. These changes were undoubtedly related to the arrival of the general trend. Even the breakthrough opportunity that Elder Tang felt, from the looks of it, The arrival of the general trend was not entirely a bad thing. Although Elder Tang's seclusion had failed this time, no one could tell what the future would be like. Elder Tang's change was only a microcosm of the billions of cultivators. It was clear how big of an impact the arrival of the general trend would have on the entire galaxy. "There is something I need you to do." Lu Yi looked at Elder Tang and He Baichuan, then told them about the insect clan's views on the arrival of the general trend. He emphasized the plans of the insect clan and the blood clan, and asked them to find a way to spread the news. Since the insect clan and the blood clan wanted to act in secret, they could not be allowed to get what they wanted no matter what. News spread quickly on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It would not be long before the entire galaxy knew about the conspiracy of the two clans. By then, no matter what the insect clan and the blood clan were planning, there would be countless pairs of eyes watching them. After hearing this, the two of them looked solemn. They hurriedly looked for their own contacts to spread the news. A day later, Lu Ye's talent tree clone sat cross-legged in the palace. He held a fire gourd in his hand, and a large number of storage rings piled up beside him. These were the fire-type resources that the three-world island had purchased recently. The price of fire-type resources on the 10,000 Elephant Sea was rising steadily. It could be said that Lu Yi had single-handedly changed the market. Because the talent tree clone also had a part of the talent tree, it could also devour the special flames nurtured by the fire gourd to increase the speed of its transformation. When the time came, he only needed to retrieve the clone. Meanwhile, Lu Ye's main body had already entered the depths of the 10,000 Elephant Sea to cultivate in peace. Even though his cultivation efficiency was terrifying, it was not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. Naturally, he had to seize every opportunity he could. Nurturing the special flames required fire-type resources, and Lu Yi also needed a large amount of fire-type resources for his cultivation. Although the three-world island could supply them for a short period of time, it would be difficult to continue for a long time. Sent the wrong message. It has been modified. Just refresh it. End of chapter. Chapter 2062. Lu Yi had spent almost a year cultivating this time. A year later, his main body returned from the sea. He could not continue cultivating. His consumption of fire elemental resources was too terrifying. Since half a year ago, even though the three-world island had done their best, the fire elemental resources they purchased were not enough to make ends meet. This caused his cultivation to be intermittent. There was still some fuel left in the talent tree, but it was not good to continue using it. He had to have some backup just in case. Lu Ye's cultivation had indeed improved a lot in this year's cultivation, but it was far from breaking through to the mid-stage. After the accumulation required for a breakthrough was obviously much greater than before. Under observation, although the talent tree had some changes, it was still not to the extent of metamorphosis. Lu Yi could not even determine how many rare fires it needed to devour. He only knew that the fourth metamorphosis of the talent tree was a bottomless pit. This did not discourage him. Instead, he was somewhat excited because the talent tree needed so much this time. This meant that once it completed its metamorphosis, there would definitely be a huge change. Back then, Zhao Nian of the 9 states had not reached his level. In terms of growth alone, he had undoubtedly surpassed the previous Dao tree successor. In a mere year, the Wanxiang Sea had not changed much. After the insect and blood races conspiracy was exposed, the conflicts between the various factions had decreased a lot. Now, many powerful factions and powerful cultivators were investigating the insect and blood race. At the same time, they were trying to find out the secret behind the Great Trend's descent. Unfortunately, no one had made any substantial gains so far. Lu Yi did not stay on the three-world island for long. After a few days, he instructed Old Tang and the others to continue purchasing fire elemental resources. Then, he disguised himself and left the three-world island. He was going to the Hengyue Galaxy, which was the former 9 States Galaxy. Ma Bin had said something to him before he left, so he wanted to know what was in the Hengyue Galaxy that could satisfy his need for fire elemental resources. Before he left, Lu Yi brought along a large number of spiritual jades, spiritual crystals, and spirit-refining pills to ensure that he could use these resources to cultivate even if he was outside. The former Nine States galaxy was directly connected to the Wanxiang galaxy by a bug path. Lu Yi had once chatted with Ma Bin and asked him curiously why he wanted to kill Wanxiang's Ri. Did the Wanxiang galaxy have a deep grudge with the former Nine States? Ma Bin's answer was that many factions had joined forces to besiege the Nine States galaxy. The reason they could successfully gather was because of the Wanxiang galaxy. Those factions came from all parts of the universe. Wanxiang galaxy was involved in the operation against the former Nine States galaxy. The past was like smoke. The cultivators back then were basically all dead. Only some of the long-lived races, such as the experts of the Yao clan, were still alive. After so many years, Ma Bin's revenge was almost done. So, he did not reveal to Lu Yi which forces had participated in the siege of the 9 provinces. Clearly, he did not want to continue this hatred. The matters of the 9 prefectures could be considered settled here. All in all, it was very convenient for Vientiane to travel to and from the galaxy where the 9 states were located. Lu Yi checked the condition of the insect path and confirmed that it was still stable, so he continued to move forward. The exit of the tunnel was behind him. Lu Yi looked around and frowned. Although he knew that this galaxy had declined, he didn't expect it to decline to such an extent. The stars that could be seen in other parts of the starry sky couldn't be seen at all here. The entire starry sky was shrouded in darkness, and even the starry sky's spiritual energy wasn't rich. In such an environment, the production of spirit jades was much lower than normal places, not to mention the birth of a large realm. Lu Yi immediately made a judgment in his heart. Such a place was basically better than some desolate star systems that had nothing at all. Just as Lu Yi was thinking about which direction to go, there was a sudden movement behind him. Lu Yi turned around and saw ripples at the exit of the tunnel. Vaguely, a figure was gradually appearing. Someone was coming. Sure enough, after only 3 breaths, 2 figures suddenly rushed out of the insect path. It was a man and a woman. Because they had just passed through the tunnel, the energy fluctuations on their bodies were very obvious. The man was at the early stage of Yu Yao, while the woman was at the late stage of constellation. However, the 2 of them were holding hands intimately. They should be Dao companions or siblings. The auras on their bodies were scorching hot. Obviously, they were of the fire element. They obviously didn't expect there to be someone at the exit of the tunnel. When they saw Lu Yi, they were shocked. Their eyes were full of vigilance, and they secretly circulated their energy. Lu Yi had no interest in them. Moreover, he had already disguised himself, so the man and woman didn't recognize him as the lord of the Wanxiang Sea. In addition, Lu Yi didn't move and his aura was restrained. They couldn't see through him at all. As if sensing that Lu Yi had no ill intentions, the man nodded slightly at Lu Yi. He pulled the woman, turned around, and rushed to the side. Soon they disappeared. Lu Yi ignored them. He looked up at the starry sky. Where should I go? Ma Bin only told him to come to the Hengyu galaxy but didn't tell him what was here. However, if there was something in this galaxy that was useful to him, it shouldn't be difficult for him to find it with his sunshine cultivation. I'll take a look around. This is the galaxy where the 9 states are located. To be able to nurture a top realm like the 9 states, there should be something special about this galaxy. He randomly picked a direction and flew away. Along the way, he didn't find anything. It wasn't until half a day later that he suddenly turned his head and looked in a direction. There were fluctuations of magic power coming from that direction, as if someone was fighting. As time passed, the distance between them was getting closer and closer. It wasn't a fight, it was being hunted. Lu Yi focused his gaze over and chuckled. Because he saw that the people being pursued were actually the man and woman he'd seen at the exit of the insect path. At this moment, both of them were in a sorry state. The man's cultivation was slightly higher, so he was constantly executing techniques behind him with the intention of stopping the enemy, but it was of little effect. It wasn't a cultivator chasing after them, but a star beast. It was an oval-shaped star beast that was more than 100 feet long. Its body was snow-white like a giant silkworm cocoon. There were ferocious mouths at both ends of its head and tail, with circles of spiral serrated fangs densely packed. The two fleeing people were obviously no match for such a star beast. Lu Yi had never seen such a star beast before. This had nothing to do with experience. It was just that there were too many star beasts in the starry sky. Even the most knowledgeable cultivator wouldn't dare say that they knew all of them. The two fleeing people didn't notice Lu Yi at first, but as they got closer, they finally noticed Lu Ye's aura. The man in the lead was stunned at first, but then he cried out in joy, "Dao brother is merciful, please save us. My wife and I are willing to offer a 5-star artifact as a thank you gift." He didn't know what Lu Ye's cultivation was, but he could feel that Lu Yi was stronger than him from their brief contact before. Moreover, since Lu Yi dared to stand still, it meant that he had great confidence in his own strength. Now that they were in such a situation, asking Lu Yi for help was undoubtedly the best choice. In order to make Lu Yi agree, he even offered a thank you gift. There was no doubt that he had considered this carefully. They had met by chance in the starry sky, and they were still being hunted, so if he silently approached Lu Yi, it would undoubtedly be a disaster. If Lu Yi didn't have a good temper, they might be killed by Lu Yi before the star beast showed its might. Of course, paying a 5-star artifact was painful, but what was it compared to saving their lives? After shouting, he carefully checked Lu Ye's movements. He didn't hear a reply, but Lu Yi still stood there, his attitude unclear. There was no way to judge whether Lu Yi was willing to help or not. However, the current situation didn't allow him to think too much. The man gritted his teeth and said, "Fight!" He led the woman and quickly approached Lu Yi. It wasn't until the two of them passed by Lu Ye's side that the man was completely relieved. Then he vaguely sensed a wave of transcendence energy behind him. When he looked back, his expression froze. This was because the originally overbearing star beast had been sliced in half from the middle. The two halves of the corpse were neatly cut, and they flew past the unknown powerhouse without a single drop of blood on his body. Rizhao. The man's heart trembled, and he immediately determined Lu Ye's cultivation. The wave of transcendence energy just now couldn't be faked. Moreover, this star beast was at the late Yuyao late stage. Only Rizhao could kill it so easily. After calming himself down, the man brought the woman to stand in front of Lu Yi. He respectfully cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for saving my life, Senior." Lu Yi tilted his head and looked at them, feeling strange. Senior, he was certain that he was definitely younger than the couple. However, this was how the cultivation world worked. Strength was everything, especially in a place like this where there were few people. If the other party did not show sufficient etiquette, they would be casually killed and no one would know. Lu Yi calmed himself down and nodded slightly. He acted like an expert, and the couple felt even more reverence. Oh, Rizhao, that was high and mighty, a height that they could never reach. As promised, the man quickly took out a 5-star artifact and respectfully handed it over to Lu Yi as a way to repay him for saving his life. Lu Yi casually took it. A 5-star artifact wasn't worth much to him, but it could be used to nourish sword chi for the sword gourd. This was something he deserved. The woman even took the initiative to search for the star beast's corpse, took the crystal core from the corpse, and handed it to Lu Yi. Her intention to please him was obvious. "Senior, are you also heading to the giant red star?" the man asked. Although Lu Yi appeared calm, since he was willing to help just now, he wasn't a cold-hearted person. This kind of powerhouse wasn't difficult to get along with, which was why the man dared to ask. When the last chapter was published, the children came to make a fuss, so there was a mistake. Brothers who subscribe to it can just update it. End of chapter. Chapter 2063. Giant Red Star? Lu Yi turned to look at him, somewhat puzzled. "Senior, you don't know?" The man was surprised. "I saw that you were also using the fire element just now, so I thought you were going to the giant red star to cultivate." Lu Ye's expression changed. "So the giant red star is beneficial to the cultivation of the fire element?" The man smiled. "That's exactly why we came here. There are many other cultivators of the fire element there as well. Lu Yi blinked. Then I'll have to go take a look. He was now certain that Ma Bin had asked him to come to the Eternal Eclipse Galaxy for this giant red star. Since it was beneficial to the cultivation of the fire element and also attracted a large number of cultivators of the fire element, it was definitely a place with abundant fire element energy. Only such a place could attract cultivators. Hearing this, the man said, "Senior, if you don't mind, we're willing to lead the way for you. To tell you the truth, we've been here once before." He wasn't trying to curry favor with Lu Yi. The main reason was that with Lu Yi, their journey would be much safer. Even if they encountered the star beasts from before, they wouldn't have to worry about anything. "Then let's go." Lu Yi nodded. Then, he tossed out his planetary boat and took the lead to board it. The couple followed closely behind. The man gave Lu Yi directions, and Lu Yi flew the planetary boat. Along the way, he casually chatted with the couple and learned that one of them was called Fei Zhuang, and the other was called Hong Yan. The two of them didn't come from the same galaxy, but had met on the Wanxiang Sea and developed feelings for each other over the years. This kind of thing was actually rare. Although cultivators didn't care much about sex, if two people came from different galaxies, it would be very difficult for them to be together. Fei Zhuang asked Lu Ye's name, and Lu Yi casually said Li Tai Bai. Along the way, Fei Zhuang and his wife became bolder, probably because they saw Lu Ye's gentle nature. They asked Lu Yi some questions about their cultivation, and Lu Yi answered them one by one, making the couple shed tears of gratitude. 2 days later, Lu Yi looked ahead and saw a red dot in the dark starry sky. As he got closer, the red dot grew bigger and brighter, like a huge fireball burning in the starry sky. This was the giant red star. In essence, it was a sun that was on its way to destruction. Everything in the starry sky had its own destiny. Even if the sun was so dazzling and seemed to be an existence that could last forever, there would still be a time when it perished. Such a scene was not common even in the entire starry sky. Lu Yi finally understood the purpose of Ma Bin's guidance. To him, this huge red star was what he needed the most right now. Among the fire elemental resources he had purchased at the 10,000 Creations Ocean, there was a kind called the Flaming Sun Essence. The Flaming Sun Essence was refined from the essence of the Grand Sun by cultivators using some special methods. This was not something that just any cultivator could do. Not only was it time-consuming, but it also required the help of some special techniques and magic treasures. Even so, there were still some cultivators who made a living doing this to earn cultivation resources. And the best place to refine the Flaming Sun Essence was the giant red star. The Great Sun Essence at its peak was not so easy to collect. "Senior Tai Bai, we need to take a detour up ahead." Lu Yi was looking at the gradually approaching giant red star when Fei Zhuang's voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Lu Yi came back to his senses. While steering the star boat to the side, he asked casually, "What's up ahead?" Fei Zhuang said, "The starry sky up ahead is damaged, and the space is extremely fragile. If you barge in recklessly, you may cause some unnecessary accidents." Damaged starry sky? Lu Yi frowned and looked in that direction. Sure enough, he noticed something unusual. This kind of anomaly could not be detected if one did not deliberately investigate it. And the location of this anomaly covered a large area. "Why is that?" Lu Yi asked. Fei Zhuang shook his head. "I don't know. I heard it from someone before, so I remembered it." Lu Yi nodded. Suddenly, his heart jolted as he vaguely realized something. The location of the damaged starry sky was very likely the place where the former 9 prefectures were located. In the Great Battle back then, the former 9 prefectures were about to be destroyed, but they were teleported away by the Heavenly Fate Plate and disappeared without a trace. It seemed that the Heavenly Fate Plate had not only teleported the former 9 prefectures, but the entire starry sky. That was why the starry sky here was damaged. Even if 10,000 years had passed, the space here was still extremely fragile. Looking at the giant red star in the distance, an even bolder guess appeared in Lu Ye's mind. For the plate of heavenly secrets to move the 9 provinces, it might not only have consumed the resources of the 9 provinces, but also the power of the sun. Otherwise, It would not have been possible for a supreme treasure like the Plate of Heavenly Secrets to move such a vast region to such a far place. The Great Sun's power must have been greatly consumed because of this, and that was why it was heading toward destruction after 10,000 years. Ma Bin must have come to investigate and knew that he needed a lot of fire-type resources, so he had specially given him some advice. So it seemed that the 9 prefectures were able to survive because of the Great Sun. If it were not for this Great Sun, the 9 prefectures would have been destroyed during the teleportation. It would have been impossible for them to survive. The star boat went around the damaged starry sky and continued to approach the giant red star. Gradually, Lu Yi felt that the aura around him became scorching hot, as if a hot wind was blowing in his face from the direction of the giant red star. Not only was the wind hot, but it also seemed to contain the spiritual energy of the starry sky. Compared to ordinary spiritual energy of the starry sky, the spiritual energy here seemed to be more violent and destructive. Solar wind. Lu Yi slightly activated the power of his talent tree, and found that it could indeed devour the heat and turn it into fuel. However, the efficiency was very low. This was undoubtedly because they were still far away from the giant red star. If they were close enough, the efficiency would be much higher. In fact, if they could go deeper into the giant red star. The star boat continued to move forward. Lu Yi remained unmoved. Fei Zhuang and Hong Yan, on the other hand, began activating their cultivation techniques. As they cultivated, they also resisted the erosion of the solar wind. Half a day later, Fei Zhuang suddenly said, "Senior, this is as far as we can go." He hadn't reached his limit yet, but Hong Yan, whose cultivation base was slightly weaker, had. If they went any further, she wouldn't be able to withstand it. Lu Yi nodded and said, "Go ahead. Thank you for protecting us all the way, Senior. I wish you a fruitful trip." After saying these auspicious words, Fei Zhuang jumped off the star boat with Hong Yan, found a place nearby, and started to cultivate. Lu Yi went deeper into the giant red star. Just as Fei Zhuang said, there were many fire elemental cultivators who came here to cultivate with the help of the special environment. Fei Zhuang and his wife were at the outermost area, where the constellations stayed. The deeper they went, the stronger the cultivators Lu Yi could sense. Naturally, when he passed by, the cultivators nearby would be on guard. However, when they saw that he didn't make any unnecessary movements, they slowly relaxed. After passing through the area where Yu Yao was, Lu Yi finally encountered the first Rizhao. His cultivation base was the same as his, at the early stage of the Rizhao. When their divine senses touched, Lu Yi could sense the other party's warning. It was probably saying that this area was his cultivation area, and that Lu Yi should find another place to cultivate. Lu Yi ignored it and continued to go deeper. Soon, he was out of Rizhao's range of perception. At this point, the giant red star had become incomparably huge. That was because they were close enough. At this location, even fire elemental Rizhao cultivators would find it difficult to withstand for a long time. The terrifyingly high temperature was secondary, which Rizhao cultivators could withstand. The key was the terrifying spiritual energy contained in the solar wind that constantly blew. Rizhao cultivators had to find a balance between resisting and refining it. This balance point was their limit. However, Lu Yi was still going deeper. The power of the talent tree covered his entire body. The difficulties that ordinary cultivators faced were nothing to him. After a while, Lu Yi could already see the fire elemental energy rolling on the surface of the giant red star. It was like boiling lava, flowing endlessly on the surface of the giant red star. Occasionally, lava pillars would erupt from the surface of the giant red star. They were extremely terrifying. The talent tree greedily devoured the fire elemental energy in the surroundings, and its fuel reserves increased rapidly. Lu Yi suddenly realized something interesting. He didn't need spiritual jades or crystals to cultivate in this place. While the giant red star was emitting terrifying heat, it was also constantly releasing spiritual energy. This meant that Lu Yi only needed to activate the power of the talent tree. Not only could he store fuel, but he could also cultivate at the same time. It was just that the efficiency was much lower than in the Wanxiang Sea. However, It was still much faster than relying on spiritual jades to cultivate. This place. I've come to the right place. Lu Yi was overjoyed. He finally landed on the giant red star. If he continued forward, he would be in the giant red star's interior. Almost as soon as he came to a stop, a divine sense probed him from afar and an unfamiliar voice sounded in Lu Ye's ears. Oh? Another new fellow cultivator. How rare. Lu Yi was slightly startled. He followed the direction of the telepathic thought and sensed that the owner of the voice was very far away from him. However, the other party was still able to sense his arrival in this chaotic environment. It was clear that the other party had a strong foundation. According to Lu Ye's observations along the way, to be able to stand on the giant red star, he was definitely in the late sunshine stage. Without this level of cultivation, it was impossible to do such a thing. The voice sounded a little old, but there was no malice. Lu Ye's telepathic thought surged. I'm Li Taibai. How should I address you? The voice chuckled. If you can still stay here after a while, it won't be too late to ask me. There's no point in talking about it now. This was obviously to see if Lu Yi had the right to stay here. The other party seemed to be a proud person. If Lu Yi left immediately after entering, he obviously didn't have the right to know his name. Lu Yi didn't care. He was here to cultivate, not to make friends. End of chapter. Chapter 2064. Lu Yi settled down on the giant red star. The talent tree's power was activated. While the internal fuel reserves were constantly increasing, the psionic energy was also being refined and turned into his own magical power to strengthen his foundation. After his observation, this giant red star was different from ordinary stars. The entire surface of the giant red star was flowing with magma. The deeper he went, the more terrifying the temperature became. Lu Yi took out the fire gourd. This trip was mainly for the talent tree's transformation. In order for the talent tree to transform, it had to rely on the special fire nurtured by the fire gourd. Holding the fire gourd and activating his magical power, the gourd's mouth suddenly emitted a suction force, absorbing the surrounding heat energy. However, Lu Yi soon frowned because he found that the fire gourd's absorption efficiency was not very high. This made him somewhat puzzled. Logically speaking, with such an abundant fire energy gathering place, the fire gourd's absorption efficiency should not be too low. However, in reality, if the special fire was being nurtured at this speed, it would not be as effective as the fire gourd's absorption of various fire elemental resources. After pondering for a while, Lu Yi vaguely understood the problem. In the past, the fire gourd's absorption of fire elemental resources was directly digesting the food into its stomach. Now, the fire gourd was only smelling the food. Naturally, the efficiency could not be compared to before. Since that was the case, Lu Yi activated his magical power again, trying to make the fire gourd swallow the flowing magma-like substance into the gourd. However, what puzzled him was that no matter how hard he tried, he could not do it. He activated his magical power again, enveloping a lump of magma and trying to send it into the gourd. However, the fire gourd emitted a repulsive force and he could not send it in at all. This was strange. Lu Yi observed with rapt attention. After a long while, he finally found some clues. Although the magma flowing on the giant red star was filled with terrifying heat energy, it could also be considered a fire elemental resource. However, it did not only contain heat energy, but also other things. The fire gourd could only absorb a part of it. Most of it could not be accepted, which was why it rejected it. The fire elemental resources he used to let the fire gourd devour were different. Most of the fire elemental resources could be accepted by the fire gourd. Realizing this, Lu Yi realized that he had underestimated the situation. However, it did not matter. Although the fire gourd's efficiency of nurturing the special fire would not meet expectations, it would just take more time. With this thought in mind, he calmly waited. A few days later, Lu Yi suddenly opened his eyes and unsheathed the Pan Mountain saber at his waist. Divine wind spirit marks flickered on the blade. A huge force came from below, causing him to tremble slightly. Lu Yi was surprised. Although he was only at the early sunshine realm, His foundation was extremely solid. His physical strength alone was superior to that of demons of the same level. He didn't know what was attacking him. Not only was it extremely stealthy, it was also extremely powerful. Carrying doubts, he stretched out his hand and grabbed downwards, rummaging through the scorching lava for a while before quickly lifting up a strange-looking object. This thing was fiery red, like a monkey without a tail or hair. Its 2 eyes took up half of its face, and there were a few fangs at the corner of its mouth. Star beast! There were actually star beasts in this place. There was a puncture wound on the beast's head. It was obviously caused by the Pan Mountain saber. This was also a fatal wound. Judging from the remnant aura on its body, this star beast was at Yu Yao's level. However, on second thought, if star beasts lived in a place like the Wanxiang Sea, it was not strange for there to be star beasts on this giant red star. And star beasts living in such a place. Lu Yi scanned the area with his divine sense and quickly found its location. He took out a crystal core from the star beast's body. As expected, a star beast that could live in such a place must have a fire elemental crystal core. Such a crystal core would be worth at least 10 or 20,000 spirit jades in the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi casually stuffed it into the fire gourd. This time, the fire gourd did not reject it. It swallowed it just like how it had swallowed fire elemental resources in the past. Obviously, the special fire inside the fire gourd had grown a little stronger. Compared to before, it was much more efficient. After this small incident, Lu Yi continued with his business. However, what surprised him was that in the next half a month, star beasts like the one from before would attack him from time to time. It seemed that there were many star beasts living on this giant red star, and they were all from the same clan. These star beasts had the geographical advantage and launched sneak attacks from below. If Lu Ye's divine sense was not strong enough now, he might have been hit. The star beasts that attacked sometimes came alone, sometimes in groups of 3 to 5. Their strengths were also different. There were Yu Yao's and Xingxiu's. However, without exception, no matter how many of them came, they all became nutrients for the fire gourd's special fire. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Since Lu Yi came here, the first special fire was successfully nurtured. Lu Yi sighed with emotion. There was no way to compare the efficiency with before. In the past, it only took a few days to nurture the special fire. Now it took so long. This was also thanks to the star beasts that contributed their crystal cores. If the fire gourd had to rely on its own devouring, it would take at least a month to nurture the special fire. However, on second thought, he had spent money in the past. Now, he was doing a business without any capital. Naturally, there was no comparison. He activated the power of the talent tree. His roots reached into the mouth of the fire gourd and swallowed the special fire. He observed the talent tree. As expected, it did not show any signs of transforming. It was obvious that the conditions for the talent tree to transform had not been met. There was still a long way to go. On this day, Lu Yi was sitting quietly. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked down with narrowed eyes. The star beasts had come to ambush him again. Although the other party was very secretive, he still noticed some clues. Recently, life had been very boring. Fighting with the star beasts here was one of the few pleasures he had. Moreover, the star beasts' crystal cores could increase the speed of nurturing the special fire. Lu Yi naturally wanted as many star beasts as possible. He raised his hand and placed it on the mountain blade. He only needed to wait for the right opportunity to deal a fatal blow. However, in the next moment, Lu Yi suddenly felt that the star beasts this time seemed a little different from before. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, the star beast under the lava suddenly accelerated. At the same time, Lu Yi unsheathed his mountain blade and ruthlessly stabbed down. A powerful force attacked, and Lu Yi flew into the air. A figure flashed under the lava. Lu Yi rapidly fell down. The long blade in his hand slashed out a series of afterimages. However, the star beast had already disappeared. Under the surging magic power, only the lava was stirred up. Standing in the same place, Lu Yi was surprised. He didn't expect there to be a sunshine-level star beast here. Moreover, The moment of contact just now proved that the star beast wasn't an ordinary one. It was at least equivalent to the middle sunshine level. Lu Yi didn't care much if it was only at the middle sunshine level. However, the environment here was obviously very conducive to the star beast's performance. Such a middle sunshine level star beast definitely had the deterrence of a late sunshine level star beast. It was a pity that he couldn't kill it. If the core of such a powerful star beast was devoured by the fire gourd, it would definitely be able to nurture the second special fire faster. Lu Yi didn't pay much attention to the sunshine star beast. Who would have thought that it would be so persistent? After the first failed ambush, the star beast didn't show any fear. Instead, it seemed to be angered by Lu Yi. Every few days it would ambush him. More importantly, the star beast was extremely secretive every time it moved. Moreover, it had the style of a ghost cultivator. After missing its attack, it would immediately run away. This annoyed Lu Yi immensely. He came here for the transformation of his talent tree. How could he have the time to fight a battle of wits and courage with such a star beast? Once, Lu Yi was enraged. He chased the star beast into the interior of the giant red star. In the end, he returned disappointed. He couldn't find any trace of the star beast at all. The interior of the giant red star was extremely harsh. Even if Lu Yi went deep inside, his divine telekinesis couldn't spread too far. He couldn't grasp the star beast's whereabouts at all. Helpless, he could only change his position. Lu Yi thought that this would settle the matter peacefully. However, the sunshine star beast obviously didn't think so. Even if Lu Yi changed his position, it still accurately found him and constantly harassed him. It seemed that Lu Yi had killed too many star beasts before, which made it hold a grudge against him. A few days later, Lu Yi sat cross-legged on the giant red star. Below him, the sunshine star beast slowly approached him. Its aura was restrained to the extreme. Even Lu Yi didn't notice it at all. Although star beasts didn't have much spiritual intelligence, sometimes their superior instincts were more difficult to deal with than their spiritual intelligence. After fighting with Lu Yi many times, it had a rough idea of Lu Ye's background. It knew the best way to approach Lu Yi secretly and when to attack. The distance kept closing, but the star beast didn't reveal any of its aura. It only attacked when it reached an extreme position. In the past, every time it attacked at this time, Lu Yi would react and it would escape. However, this time, Lu Yi didn't move at all. It was as if he didn't notice it. The star beast's simple spiritual intelligence couldn't understand why, but it didn't think too much about it. Its instincts told it that this was an opportunity. A large, hairless hand reached out of the magma, aiming straight for Lu Ye's heart. The 5 fingers on the hand shone with a cold light, sharper than most Dharma treasures in the world. It pierced through Lu Ye's protective Dharma power in one strike. Perhaps Lu Ye's life would be taken in the next moment. However, at this moment, Lu Ye's Dharma power surged wildly. He suddenly opened his eyes. With a thought, layers of defensive spirit tattoos formed, protecting his vital points. At the same time, he reached out and grabbed the star beast's arm. With the other hand, he unsheathed his saber and slashed down. The star beast's vigilance was too high. He could only use this method to make it lower its guard. Fortunately, the star beast's spiritual intelligence wasn't high. That was why he had a chance to succeed. The problem of spiritual intelligence was also the weakness of most star beasts. This was the only thing he could use. End of chapter. Chapter 2065. Lu Yi only felt a slight pain in his chest. Shockingly, several defensive spirit inscriptions had been shattered. The next moment, a terrifying power came from his hand, making him lose his grip on the star beast's arm. It struggled free. At the same time, the saber slashed down. A strange squeak came from under the magma, and the fierce aura quickly disappeared. Lu Yi steadied himself and hurriedly looked at his chest. He saw blood seeping out of his clothes. Clearly, he had been injured in the sneak attack just now. However, he could feel that it was only a flesh wound. The defensive spirit rune had blocked that fatal attack for him. He looked at the Pan Mountain saber again. There was a trace of blood on the blade. With a cold harumph, he plunged into the lava without any hesitation. "Let's see where you can run to this time," he swore in his heart. No matter what, he had to get rid of all future troubles. Otherwise, how could he cultivate the special fire in peace if he was always on this guy's mind? The two figures, one in front and one behind, went deep into the giant red star. Neither of them was slow. The solar star beast was not panicking. Lu Yi had chased it once before, but it had shaken him off in a few moves. It thought it would be the same this time. However, it did not expect that no matter how hard it tried this time, the danger behind it was like a maggot in its bones. It could not shake it off. This chase lasted for several days. Both man and beast had long traveled deep into the giant red star. The surrounding temperature was frighteningly high, far higher than the surface of the giant red star. Even a peak sunshine expert would have melted in an instant at this temperature. The star beast's ability to withstand the heat was due to its innate talent. This kind of special star beast was born to chase after heat. Even a constellation could survive in the giant red star, let alone a sunshine star beast. Its ability to withstand the terrifying heat was not something other races could compare to. Lu Yi could withstand it because of the talent tree's protection. Invisible roots covered his entire body, so he could not feel the heat at all. At a certain moment, Lu Yi suddenly felt a sense of fullness. This was a feeling he had never felt before. He could not help but be startled. After careful inspection, he realized that the talent tree's fuel reserves had reached their limit. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Ever since the talent tree had transformed 3 times, its fuel reserves had never reached the limit. Unexpectedly, there was an unexpected gain this time. This special environment was too suitable for the increase of the talent tree's fuel reserves. However, he was here to kill the solar star beast to prevent future trouble. For the time being, it was a pleasant surprise. After several days of waiting, it should be about time. At this moment, the aura of the fleeing star beast was clearly much weaker than before. This was not because it was being chased, but because the wound on its body was continuously worsening. This kind of astral beast had a strong physique. Normal injuries were nothing to it. The interior of the giant red star was the best place for it to heal. However, the injuries caused by the mountain blade were different. With the power of brightness entangling, not only were the wounds unable to heal, they were constantly being torn apart. This greatly depleted the astral beast's energy and stamina. Lu Yi was also relying on the guidance of Fang's power to chase after him. Otherwise, he would have lost track of him long ago. Raising his hand, he pointed the coiling mountain saber to the front and shook slightly. An invisible wave rippled out, causing the fleeing solar star beast to stagger. Its wound suddenly tore open, causing blood to spurt out. Rapid squeaking sounds came from its mouth. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Yi quickly rushed over. After a few leaps, he was not far from the astral beast. The astral beast clearly sensed that something was wrong. Knowing that it had no hope of escaping, it immediately turned around and pounced at Lu Yi with a ferocious expression. It looked like it wanted to drag Lu Yi down with it even if it died. Lu Ye's expression was calm. After fighting with the astral beast for so long, he had a clear understanding of it. It had a strong physique and great strength. Using the special environment of the giant red star, it moved very stealthily. However, it was no match for him in a direct confrontation. If they were not here, he could use his spirit to suppress it. This was because the biggest weakness of astral beasts was that their spirit was not strong. Except for a few special ones, most astral beasts had this weakness. However, the environment here was not good. The temperature was too high. If Lu Ye's divine will left his body, he would have to endure the pain of being burned. The blade light fell, and a huge lotus flower suddenly bloomed. Countless petals danced in the air, cutting in all directions. The squeaking sounds became even more hurried. Just the use of the lotus sun had caused the astral beast to suffer even more injuries. It was dizzy for a moment. Lu Yi struck again, and the faint roar of a beast could be heard. A ferocious beast head suddenly appeared, baring its fangs and biting at the astral beast. The surrounding magma instantly retreated. After advancing to Solar Star Beast, Lu Ye's every move contained terrifying power. Compared to Yu Yao, his strength was on a completely different level. The solar star beast was sent flying. A large part of its chest had caved in, and it looked extremely miserable. Lu Yi leaped forward, the Pan Shan saber stabbing forward. He was determined to kill it. Faced with this attack, the heavily injured astral beast no longer had the strength to resist. However, Lu Ye's saber did not manage to pierce through. The saber stopped an inch away from the astral beast's head. Under the illumination of the surrounding fiery red light, Lu Yi could clearly see the fear in the astral beast's eyes. Its body was covered in blood, but it opened its mouth and spat out a red ray of light as thick as a finger. Lu Yi sensed it and was surprised to find that this red ray of light contained extremely pure fire-type energy. It looked like the flaming sun essence he had purchased on the 10,000 Creation Sea, but its quality was clearly much higher and purer. Fire-type resources like flaming sun essence were refined by cultivators in an environment like the giant red star through special methods. They would then sell it in exchange for the cultivation resources they needed. Lu Yi did not expect the astral beast in front of him to have such an ability. Moreover, it seemed to be an innate ability. Taking a closer look, the astral beast's eyes were not only filled with fear, but also begging for mercy. It was clearly afraid. It knew that it was no match for Lu Yi, but it could not shake him off, so it used this method to beg for mercy. As for why it spat out the flaming sun essence, it was not difficult to understand. Cultivators who came to the giant red star would basically refine the flaming sun essence through their own methods. They would either bring it back to sell or refine and absorb it themselves. Only Lu Yi, whether it was storing fuel for his talent tree or nurturing strange flames in his fire gourd, did not require this process. This astral beast must have seen other cultivators refine this thing, so it spat it out. Looking at it this way, this astral beast had a certain level of intelligence. It knew when to give in and knew what to take out to tempt Lu Yi. It had undoubtedly succeeded. If it had been a little slower, Lu Yi would have taken its crystal core. Lu Yi raised his hand and sucked the flaming sun essence over. He then took out his fire gourd and swallowed the flaming sun essence with a shake of the gourd. The strange flames inside grew. "Is there more?" Lu Ye's divine sense surged as he asked through voice transmission. The astral beast did not respond. It clearly did not understand. Lu Yi held the fire gourd and gestured a few times. Only then did the astral beast react. It opened its mouth with difficulty and spat out another flaming sun essence. Lu Ye's eyes lit up. There really is more. He swallowed the fire gourd and looked at the other party. The astral beast scratched its ears and cheeks anxiously. Lu Ye's face darkened. He gestured with the mountain pan saber, clearly threatening it. The astral beast's face was filled with fear. It opened its mouth reluctantly and spat out the flaming sun essence for the third time. But after this time, Lu Yi clearly found that the astral beast's spirit had become extremely sluggish. The quality of the flaming sun essence it spat out was also inferior to the previous 2 times. Could it be that this was its limit? Lu Yi still wanted to confirm. After using the fire gourd to absorb the flaming sun essence, he placed the mountain pan saber on the astral beast's neck. The astral beast's expression was one of despair. Seeing this, Lu Yi could roughly confirm that this was indeed its limit. If that was the case, this astral beast would be of great use. It could refine something like the flaming sun essence. It could undoubtedly increase the speed of the strange flame's growth. If he simply killed it, although the effects of a sunshine-grade crystal core were not bad, it was no different from killing the chicken to get the eggs. On the other hand, if he left it alive, it could be used for a long time. However, the astral beast's intelligence was not very high. It was difficult to communicate with it. Moreover, he didn't know how effective it was at refining the flaming sun essence. This needed to be verified. Just as Lu Yi was thinking about how to communicate with it, the star beast suddenly thought of something and hurriedly urged Lu Yi to squeak. Then, it looked at the long saber on its neck in awe. Lu Yi understood. He put away the saber and didn't forget to threaten it. Don't think about escaping. If you dare to escape, you'll die. The astral beast had no idea what he was talking about. Its figure flashed and rushed in a certain direction. Its speed wasn't fast, mainly because it was too weak right now. Lu Yi was really afraid that it would die just like that. He immediately activated the mountain pan saber and dissolved most of the Feng power on its body. The man and beast returned the way they came. After reducing the torment of the Feng power, the astral beast's spirit seemed to slowly improve. It sped away, letting out strange sounds from its mouth. Lu Yi also didn't know what it was doing. After a long time, another astral beast approached. Only then did Lu Yi realize that this astral beast was summoning its companions. It was a moon astral beast. It quickly met up with the moon astral beast. When it saw Lu Yi, the moon astral beast was clearly shocked. It bared its fangs at Lu Yi. The sun astral beast, however, smashed its fist into the moon astral beast's head. The moon astral beast was stunned, and it finally calmed down. Then the two astral beasts gathered together and used some unknown method to communicate. The moon astral beast then opened its mouth and spat out a stream of flaming sun essence. Lu Ye's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but smile. Good, good, good. Very good. He never thought that the sun astral beast would be able to bring him such a pleasant surprise. He had no intention of killing it. After all, in his opinion, the sun astral beast was just a chicken that could lay eggs. However, if it could summon its companions to provide it with flaming sun essence, then it wouldn't just be a chicken. It would be a group of chickens. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.